Hey folks, welcome back. So this is now part 3 of my series on the FASERIP gaming system powering the Marvel Superheroes RPG from TSR. And this classic here is the advanced set, which we finally reached after looking through both the versions of the basic set. So this one is quite hard to find. I'll just put that up front. I found this after a great deal of patient searching on eBay. It's box is battered as most of them are after so many years, but the interior contents are pretty good, and it still cost me about £80, I think, and that's probably on the lower end. If you want something in better condition, particularly on the exterior, prepare to pay a lot, because the advanced set was the most popular one, or at least is the most popular one now for collectors, as far as I can tell. But you get a lot for your money. That's the good thing. The advanced set really gives you a lot of content, a lot of new additions from the basic rules. We'll start with just showing the blurb here. So they say, now the adventure continues with the Marvel Superheroes Advanced Set, which expands the boundaries of the original game and reaches new levels of comic book action and adventure. Within the 2 books, you'll find new heroes, new powers, a new character generation system, new combat options, an expanded universal table, more to build, fight, buy, and take apart, plus full rules for setting up your own Marvel Superheroes campaign based in your hometown. And if your heroes are getting too cocky, Dr. Doom and the other nefarious Marvel supervillains are waiting in the wings. Inside the box, we get a 96-page player's book, a 64-page judge's book, a 22.5 by 33-inch full-color 2-sided map, over 40 character cards, 80 stand-up adventure counters, and 2 10-sided dice. They do say it can be played by itself, but it's designed to expand the existing Marvel Superheroes game. So they kind of want you to start with basic and then move yourself up to advanced, which is fair enough, but I think, honestly, if you're used to moderately crunchy games, i.e. any version of D&D, you'll be fine with this. It's really not very difficult to get a handle on. One difficulty, as you'll see, is really tiny print and 3 columns. But, old school formatting, what can you do? So, as we crack it open, now, when they talk about an expanded universal table, that sounds pretty exciting, right? And we saw, the revised basic set. By the way, these are not the original dice. These are proper 10-sided dice that were painted and not filled in by crayon. Just to note that. The new universal table we can see on the back of both the player and the judge's book. So what's different between this and the revised basic set? Actually, not an awful lot. So all the same options are still available here on the combat results tables. We have the same levels of capability up to Shift Z. Then there's a sort of barrier between that and the Class 1000, Class 3000, Class 5000. Now we have Beyond. That's the new expansion. So that means basically extreme cosmic level power. You'll see that it's just like Class 5000, but everything bar the green results have been shifted up 1 block. And that's the pattern for this whole section, really. So that's it. Basically, we have a Beyond level. There is a use to having this extra column, but I mean, in a typical campaign, unless you're playing really high-powered cosmic heroes, probably not going to come up too often. And you probably wouldn't want to fight cosmic forces like Death or Eternity anyway, even if you were a cosmic level hero, because they are beyond. Other than that, it's pretty much what you saw in the basic revised set, which is good. It makes for an easy transition. So let's dig into the book a little bit. Now, this is a lot thicker than the previous edition. It's 96 pages instead of 64 for the revised set. We have a lot of rules in here. And you'll see that the style of delivering those rules is quite different. And so it's very comprehensive as well. So we start with the basic definitions of heroes. Character creation is up front rather than buried in the back, which is interesting. Character modeling, so some tips on how to put together a character that models somebody in the comics that maybe isn't represented in the set. Then we have a whole chapter on feats, the time scale of the turn, initiative, different types of feats, and types of feats too, movement, life, death, and health. Then we have the campaign resources, karma, popularity. We have contacts now, that's a new thing, and resources. Then we get into hardware, magic, and more. So we've got weapons, vehicles, and setting up house, which is a favorite bit for me, because one of the things I love about superhero games and RPGs in general is when you can have a permanent impact on the world. And one way to do that is to set up a base. And they give you the rules technology here to set up a base, including buying different types of rooms, hiring staff, giving you material strengths and costs for everything. It's very cool. Then we have magic in the Marvel Universe, building, modifying, and alien technology, the resource feat, building stuff when time, kit bashing, modifying items, programming and reprogramming. Then we have our appendices, powers, talents, and the new contacts, our character sheet, and then the power listing inside the back cover, and the universal table as well. So, what makes up a hero? Well, we know this from the previous videos. Once again, like in the revised video, I'm not going to focus too much on the basics here. You understand the key points of the FASERIP stats, so I'll give you a basic rundown and move on. So, essentially, every character has a rank in these 7 different stats, which spell out FASERIP when you line them up. They are fighting, agility, strength, endurance, reason, intuition, and psyche. Then you have secondary abilities, health, karma, resources, and popularity. So, health is how close you are to being KO'd. KO'd or killed. Karma is a meta currency, essentially. So when you do heroic things, you save people, you stop supervillains, you stop a crime, you get karma points. And you can use those karma points on a one-for-one basis to influence your rolls, or you can spend them to decrease the outcome success level of enemy rolls against you. You can also use them for, building things, for all kinds of different roles. Essentially, anything that's a feat roll, you can use karma on. Resources is a measure of how wealthy you are in a way, but also how much influence you have. And you use that in a similar way to wealth tracking in Call of Cthulhu, where it's abstract. If you are able to make a feat roll and get a success on your resources rank, then you can go ahead and buy the thing. Popularity, this is a measure of your character's reputation. It's generated first when you create the character, or if you use a pre-gen character, it's already listed there for you. It's represented as a rank and a rank number, like everything else. And if you have a positive popularity, the people view you as a hero. If you have a negative popularity, you're viewed as a villain. The level of your popularity is used to determine the reactions of NPCs or large groups of people to your presence. And over here we have a little table that summarizes the ranks. So they have an English language description, they have a numerical range. This is different from the previous where they had a set number. Each rank covers a range of numbers. And then the standard rank number, which gives you kind of an average. Now the class 1000, 3000, 5000, and beyond are reserved for cosmic beings, and you sort of start at those levels. You can't shift upwards from the shift set and below into class 1000 or above. One thing you'll see in the FASERIP system quite often is that you get column shifts, positive or negative, depending on the situation. And they talk about the basic use for each of these abilities. So fighting is about your raw combat ability. It's used for hand-to-hand combat, basically. Agility is a measure of your dexterity and nimbleness, and you also use it for thrown weapons or missile weapons. Strength is a measure of your physical power. If you're using slugfest combat, then it determines the damage that you do, and it's used to determine success and damage when you're doing wrestling maneuvers like grabbing, escaping, or stuff like that. It's also used to determine success when you want to destroy materials, or if you want to lift heavy objects. Endurance is a measure of your personal toughness and physical resistance, used to determine your speed, your success in charging attacks, your success in avoiding the effects of disease, poison gas, etc. And you use it to resist the effects of slams, stuns, and kill results. So basically your health calculation in this game, you just add up the face numbers, FASE, and that gives you the amount of health you have. Then we get into the sort of mental stats, reason, intuition, and psyche. So reason is about your intelligence, your capacity for logical thought, used to determine your success in building things, or your success in understanding unknown technology and languages. And intuition is a measure of your wisdom, wits, and common sense and battle reflexes. So use that to do investigations, to determine initiative, to detect hidden or possibly dangerous things, and to resist the effects of emotion control powers and spells. Psyche, finally, is a measure of your mental strength and willpower, used to show resistance to mental and will dominating attacks, and used to determine resistance to magical attacks, and it also determines your initial magical abilities for those who have magical abilities. Once again, the karma calculation is simple. You just add the RIP abilities, reason, intuition, and psyche, and then you can, as I say, spend it to add to your results of your rolls or decrease opponent's rolls results. Then there's character creation guide. So once again, this is a little bit oddball, the character creation in this system. There's really good retro clone of advanced FASERIP, which is obviously stripped of all of its Marvel copyrighted stuff, but it's called Advanced FASERIP. Appropriately enough, you can find it on DriveThruRPG. It's either very cheap or free for the PDF, and you can get a very cheap print-on-demand copy. The nice thing about that retro clone is it updates the character generation rules and makes them so they actually kind of work through a point system. And that was playtested and workshopped by a number of people on the RPG.net forums and possibly elsewhere. So if you're going to create a hero for this game, I would recommend using that system. The system in this book, as with the other Marvel Superheroes games, you'd end up with some really oddball results because everything is rolled randomly. I think you're better off, if you just want a Marvel experience, use the pre-gen characters that are in the box, and then, the ones you can find in the Gamer's Handbooks to the Marvel Universe. They're really comprehensive, and if you're looking for stuff that's updated, you're saying, man, why are you talking about this game that's from 1986? A lot has happened in the comics since then. We've got the MCU, we've got all this. Well, don't worry, because the fan community has you covered. Look for websites like Classic Marvel Forever. Look for projects like the Unofficial Canon Project. There's regular monthly newsletters and character updates and stats for anybody and everybody you can think of in the Marvel Universe for this system. You can grab those free of cost all around the internet. So go and look for that and you will be absolutely fine. I do like having the physical books from the Gamer's Handbook because, I grew up reading comics from the early 90s onward. So it's nice to have that reminder of how comics were at that time. And it's not easy to update those characters to their modern standards. But if you don't want to do the work, other people have done it for you and did a really nice job. They basically say here, the pre-generated characters, they're ready to play, but you have to keep in mind that the Marvel Universe is ever changing. So the character that you pick, they may be in a different place in the comic books. So you kind of have to set aside canon once you start the game. Pick your pre-gen, and what happens to them, it happens into your own pocket Marvel universe, and don't worry about what happens in the comic universe. It's something else. If you use a generated character, then there's 5 steps. As per usual, you generate your origin, primary abilities, secondary abilities, then your special abilities, and you fill in blanks of the character, who they are as a person and as a hero. So there are 5 types of origins: altered human, mutant, high-tech, robot, and alien. Altered humans are people that have been exposed to weird radiation or whatever. They roll their random ranks on column 1 of the table you'll see on the next page. The mutants are members of the new race of Homo superior. So they've been mutated through, the modernization of technology and the prevalence of the atomic age and radiation in the environment. They roll on column 1 of the random ranks table. They get 1 additional power, maximum 5. Their starting resources are reduced by 1 rank. Their starting popularity is always 0 because people are suspicious of mutants. They raise their endurance by 1 rank. The majority of the mutants' powers are inborn as opposed to equipment-based, and they may be affected by mutant detection and mutant nullification devices. High-tech wonders, as they're called. So they get their stuff through equipment. These are people like Iron Man. They roll on column 3 of the random table. Their initial reason is raised by 2 ranks. Then initial resources are set at good or optionally rolled. High technology must have at least 1 contact. Contact represents the organization that they work for, or if the resources are high enough, the organization they own. They should have at least 1 talent chosen by the player, and it must be scientific or professional in nature. And if, when generating powers, the high-tech wonder chooses body armor, the higher technology hero may choose to have all his powers combined into a battle suit like Iron Man. Then you got robot characters. They're artificially created sentient beings like Vision, Ultron, etc. Robots roll their abilities on column 4 of the random ranks table. Popularity is reduced to 0. All player character robots may heal normally, simulating internal repair functions. And there's no karma loss for killing a robot or allowing a robot to be deactivated. Then we have aliens. They're a blanket term for people from not just other planets, but things like Asgardians or Olympians, Atlanteans, all that sort of stuff. They roll on column 5. Their powers can be natural or based on equipment. You have to declare that when you make the character. They gain 1 less power, minimum of 2. Their starting resources are set at poor, and they start at 1 contact maximum. So that's because they're kind of outcasts. They're away from their normal people. And then here's the random ranks table. So you roll on the column determined by your origin. So you just go down through your FASERIP stats, roll in the table, check it against your origin, get the rank, and fill it in. And they give you an example of that here. Your secondary abilities: health, you just total up your face numbers. Karma, total up your RIP. Resources are typical or poor for aliens, modified by a roll on the ability modification table, which is here. High technology heroes may choose to have initial resources at good, or take a chance at typical plus the roll. Starting resources may be further modified by buying additional powers, contacts, or talents. You can also reduce your starting resources to trade them in for additional powers, talents, and contacts. Popularity is 10 at the beginning for most heroes, 0 for mutants and robots. The judge can leave it at that, or may raise it or lower it depending on whether your identity is publicly known, if your identity is secret, if you are hanging out with mutants but not known as a mutant, or if you're generally unpopular. You also have to decide whether you have a secret ID, so that will give you 2 entries in the popularity column, but you don't split your karma between the 2 identities. Then you generate your special abilities, and this is where it gets crazy sometimes. So you roll powers, contacts, and talents, and here's the table. You want to roll high to get lots of powers, lots of talents, or lots of contacts. Maximum for this typical character will be 5 powers, 4 talents, 3 contacts. So the number before the slash is what you'll get initially, and the number at the end is the maximum you can have overall. Contacts, you have room to grow even to the highest roll. Talents, again, you max out at 4 if you get the highest roll. And then you have your power categories tables. So for each power, you'll need to roll on the power category table, and then you roll on the appropriate table for that category. Okay, purple is 10s. Also roll that. We get a 65. So that puts us in distance attacks. This table here. So we roll a d10. Get a 2, and we have an ensnaring missile, so some sort of distance attack that can ensnare and grapple our enemies, and that could be flavored in different ways depending on what other powers we get, which is cool. So that's the basic idea, and you'll do that for a number of times equal to the number of powers that you got in your initial generation roll. And you can see there's a whole bunch of tables here. Certain powers will require you to take a limitation. You can also take a limitation to increase the level of your power. For example, if you want to get your power rank up to excellent, maybe you need to add a limitation like you can only use it in the daytime. Or if you want to go up to incredible, maybe the power requires a vocal component. These can be pretty significant reflections on how you'll use the powers in play. But again, I mean, the randomness of it kind of makes you end up with some weird some weird heroes. Then we have talents. So again, you roll for on the table we saw before for the number of talents you have. You roll in the talent category, and then you roll on the appropriate subcategory. So we'll do that again as an example. So you got this time a 12, which puts us in weapon skills. Roll a d10 for that. We get a 3, which in this case gives us a talent in thrown weapons. So whenever you use with thrown weapons, that'll give us a column shift in our favor when we're doing that. So that's pretty good. And there's different categories here: weapons, fighting, professional skills, scientific skills, mystical skills, and other skills. Then we got contacts. So this is a new thing. So you roll for your contacts on the same table that we saw on the previous page. And then you can also assign contacts between you and your secret identity if you have one. And there are different types of contacts you can have. Professional, there could be all kinds of different professions listed here, including things like mystics, occultists, military, law enforcement, psychiatrists, whatever. Here we have the example of their hero that they've been generating throughout this section. And then you fill in the blanks. So, what's your character's fighting name? If they have an alter ego, what is it? Male, female, or something else? How tall are they? What do they look like? If they're strange looking, then make sure you note that in their popularity. Where do they operate? Where do they live? Do they have any contacts other than the ones provided by the generation system? And check your resources. Where does that come from? How do you get that inflow coming in? Do you wear a costume? And if so, what does it look like? And finally, what's your origin? So how did you come to be a superhero, and how did that happen? So they get in then to character modeling, which is really useful for the new player. And if you don't want to go out and search out the gamer's handbooks, given the huge size of the Marvel Universe and the sheer number of characters created over the decades, they haven't written up every single character. They got pretty close to everybody that was around at the time by the end of the gamer's handbook run, but still. So they give you some idea of how to model characters using the FASERIP system, which is pretty cool. So they give you an example of a really obscure character called Osprey, and they go through a process of modeling him, what his FASERIP abilities would be, obviously getting his secondary abilities, working out his popularity, defining his special abilities. So he basically just has one power, which is flight, but he is excellent at it, so 10 areas per round, and he can levitate in place, and those powers are based in his costume. Then we generate some talents, some contacts, and then you have Osprey. So that's the character generation system. Again, I think if you want more control over it, you want something that is more balanced, you want a party where you feel like people can contribute equally, where you might end up in this system with somebody with enormous physical power but is incredibly stupid, and then you have an incredibly smart person who can't do anything, or you might roll a really strange set of powers that don't make sense together. Then look up the advanced FASERIP retroclone and use the point-based generation system. You'll probably be happier with the result. So now we get into the rules proper. So first we get into feats. Now you'll remember how these work from the previous game, but I'll give you again a quick rundown of these. So they talk about the basic time structure of the game. So a turn is 6 seconds of real time, and there are 10 turns to a minute and 600 turns to an hour. But turns are only important when something is happening on that scale. So, a bus is careening towards you and you want to try and save the passengers, or you're in a fight or whatever. And the turn happens in a particular order. So the judge determines what's happening in the world around the heroes, including the non-player characters. And the players then decide what their heroes are doing. They can perform more than one action during a turn, but it can limit the success of other actions. So there's a penalty in the form of column shifts, and they have to tell the judge what they're doing. Then you roll initiative. That's a key thing. People are not going to be accustomed to that if they come from D&D. And in old D&D, you did the same thing. You would declare your action first and then roll initiative and see what actually happened. So you could declare that you were firing off a spell only to be hit by an arrow, make your spell fizzle. So that was a whole different tactical landscape. It's the same here. So initiative is only important when one action may change or override another action, and the side with the highest initiative has the actions take place first, so it's usually used in combat. Then you have pre-action rolls, so things like defensive actions. These are called pre-action feats and are rolled at this time. Certain moderator planned interactions like explosions could occur at this time. So if you have something that is going to happen in the environment and change the situation, then you would have it happen in step 4. Step 5, the actions of the side of the initiative takes place. Either the judges or the players' actions will go depending on who got the higher initiative, and then after that the actions of the side that got the lower roll take place, and then you start back again. So each side has an initiative modifier. Notice this was an optional rule before, now it's baked in. So before it was just whoever rolled highest on D10 would take the initiative, but now you have modifiers. So you have a modifier based on the highest intuition on that side. A roll of 1 is always considered to be a roll of 1, but if your highest initiative, say, is 51 to 75, you get a modifier of 5. That will give you a big bonus bonus to your initiative, right? If you have somebody with a lot of intuition, that means they've got, high sensitivity to danger, like Spider-Man or somebody like that. So changing actions, you can do it, but it's not necessarily recommended. So for example, if you make your initiative roll and then you find out, oh crap, the thing I wanted to do is not going to work now because of what the opponent did, changing your action requires a yellow agility feat. Any feats made after changing your action are at a penalty of 1 column shift to the left, so -1 CS to use the terminology. And this roll for changing actions happens in the pre-action phase of the turn, so step number 4. Losing the initiative might negate certain actions. So for example, if you lose the initiative, you get knocked out, then whatever you're going to do, you won't get to do because you're knocked out. Then they have breakdown of the feats roll, which is the core mechanic of the game. Of course, everybody's familiar with that at this point. So you determine the ability, power, or talent you're checking. You find out the rank of that ability, power, or talent. You roll your percentile dice, these little guys, and you cross-reference the number you get against the ability's rank on the universal table. So let's say I have a rank of remarkable in strength, and I want to determine if I can punch through a material which is at excellent. So I need a green feat to do that. I rolled a 35, just missed it. Okay, so I have to spend 1 karma. If I spend 1 karma, then I'll get a green feat, and I can break through the excellent quality material. So that's the basic idea. Green is a basic success, essentially. Yellow is a strong success, and red is the strongest success. And there's different intensities of tasks that you'll use your feats with that will determine what level or color of feat result you need. So yeah, usually but not always, a colored result means the action was a success, with the color determining the degree of success, and a white is usually but not always a failure. But they've done some updates here. So first of all, we have the rank range instead of just a static number for each of the ranks in the columns. Then we have more columns. So as they mentioned, there's 3 additional columns above class 1000, so they go all the way to beyond. And they're the most powerful beings around. They can wipe out universes with no mere thought. So again, don't mess with them. So despite these additions, everything functions exactly the same as with the normal feat roll. And there are different types of feats. So ability feats are those that rely on one of your FASERIP ranks. They can be raised or lowered by talents or by something happening in the situation you're in. Power feats are those that work with one of your superheroic powers. So if you have water control at amazing, you would roll at amazing on the table to determine your success. Talent feats are those that rely on talents, and the talent will modify your ability for the purpose of that feat roll. Like I mentioned before, if you have a talent in, for example, thrown weapons, you would use an agility feat to throw a weapon at somebody, and having a talent in that would give you a column shift. So you'd be able to move 1 column to the right in your favor and make you a little bit stronger when you do that chucking of weapons at somebody. Popularity feats are those used in social interaction and use a popularity rank, and they can be modified by your contacts. So that's new. Resource feats are used in connection with your resources and determine if you can afford a specific item or piece of equipment. So that's like a credit rating check, which is very much, again, like Call of Cthulhu. So in the advanced set, they add the idea of intensity to determine whether certain feats are feasible or not. Now, we've taken things in a weird order here. So technically, the advanced set came out in 1986, and the basic revised set came out after that. So we've gone in order of complexity and not in order of publication. So some of the stuff that's mentioned here as new is actually not new to you if you bought the basic revised set. So that can be a little confusing. So intensity, we know about. Basically, a certain level of feat successes will be needed to complete a certain task. So you set an intensity of the feat as a rank, and you compare your rank to it. If your rank is above it, then you need just a green to succeed. If your rank is equal, you'll need a yellow. And if the rank of the intensity is higher than your ability, you need a red result. And there's some more stuff about that in the judge's book. Then you have automatic feats. You don't need to roll feat rolls for like picking up something like a chair or a computer or whatever. These are things that anybody can do, not just superheroes. They mentioned the judge always has the power to ask for feat rolls, but you should be reasonable about it. Essentially, if an item is more than 3 ranks lower in intensity than the requisite ability, you can just call it an automatic success. There's an optional rule of impossible feats, which we saw again in the revised basic. So an action more than 1 rank above the ability may be considered impossible. Resource feat is always limited in this fashion, which is interesting. You can also have shifts in the rank, which is the column shifts. So leftward shifts are written as -1, 2, or 3 CS. They move you down the table and make it harder to succeed. Positive column shifts, +1, +2, +3 CS, move you to the right on the table, and they give you a benefit. Shifting of ranks may make certain feats automatic or impossible, but no feat may be shifted below shift 0 or to the right above shift Z. Anything in the class 1000, 3000, 5000, or beyond columns may not be shifted except in the specific circumstances listed for that feat. So now we have types of feats 2. So they get basically into more detail here. So when we get into lifting things, for example, they give you kind of a baseline of what you can lift at different levels. So if you have incredible strength, then you'll be able to lift up to 10 tons. You know, if you're unearthly, up to 100 tons, Shift Z up to 1,000 tons. So they give the example of Spider-Man, who's at incredible, so he can lift 10 tons, but that would require a yellow feet roll, because that's the kind of the maximum of his ability. And so over 10 tons would require a red feet roll and probably spending some karma, because getting red feet is hard. If he was picking up something under a ton, which is the rank below of the maximum of remarkable, then he only needs a green feet for that. And they give examples again of what to do to modify the strength of materials based on their thickness and stuff like that. And then we have the power feats, power rank range table. This is useful. The range of your power's ability to affect things is changed by its rank. So if you have a typical level of power, you can affect 4 areas away from you. If you have on monstrous 40 areas, unearthly it would be 60 areas, and beyond is unlimited anywhere. Class 5000 is 1 million miles. I like that. If you want to use your ability for telekinesis and you have an incredible level of telekinesis, you can affect somebody from 11 areas away. It's pretty far. They also have a new feature here. So this is the power stunt. So this is where you use your power that you have to do something not necessarily laid out in the original power. So for example, if you have super speed, you might run really fast to make a whirlwind. These are called power stunts. The basic question is, has the hero done this kind of thing before? So with pre-generated characters, if they've done the power stunt before, it'll be noted in the advanced level write-ups. If you're playing a hero of your own creation or a hero that you've never seen that's done this type of stunt, the judge might say no if he feels it makes you too powerful. But if he says okay, then you need to make a feat roll. So if you've never tried it, then it's a red feat roll to succeed. If you tried it up to 3 times, yellow, more than 3 times, green. And if you make a power stunt, you must lay out 100 karma points to make the roll, in addition to any other karma you might spend. It doesn't guarantee success, it just means that you can try the stunt. If you try to stunt more than 10 times, then that stunt becomes permanent, and you could just make a standard feat roll and use it whenever you want. If you fail the feat, then the power stunt has failed, so you may try and do your cool whirlwind thing, but you end up making yourself dizzy and fall over. There could be some consequence to it. We also have an updated material strength table up here, which is useful. Again, basically the revised basic set table. Class 1000, 3000, 5000 is the virtually indestructible things like Mjolnir and adamantium is unearthly. Just a useful reference table when you're looking at breaking things. Talent feats. So basically there are 2 different ways to use them. One is to modify the ability of your character in specific instances. They give you an example of using science talent to modify something. Certain talents don't give you a modification to a feat. They instead provide you an ability. So first aid, for example, or they give you a special background, like a mystic origin or something like that. Popularity feats are a bit modified and expanded. So negative popularity is official, which again we saw in basic revised, and they give you tips on how to use popularity. So if you're dealing one-on-one with an NPC, that person will have a predisposition that's either friendly, neutral, unfriendly, or hostile. They give you examples here. So friendly characters would be like your friends, your contacts, people that don't know you but they've heard about you. Unfriendly people might be, they've never heard of you, they're total strangers, they're the opposite end of the popularity spectrum from you, and there might be somebody that you've offended, perhaps, with your actions. Hostile characters would be people that are actively opposing you, sworn enemies, for example. Popularity feats are rolled against your popularity rank number. So if you're trying to influence somebody, their predisposition towards you will tell you what kind of feat roll result you need. Friendly targets, you'll need a green, neutral, yellow, unfriendly, red, and hostile, you just can't roll a popularity feat to influence them. Column shifts can happen in popularity feats as well. So the nature of the request will determine the column being used. So if the target benefits, add +2 columns in your favor. If the target is put in danger by your request, then subtract 3 columns against you. If the item in question is up to good value, just subtract 1. Remarkable value, subtract 2. If there's a good chance that the item you're asking for them is not going to be returned, -2. If the item is one of a kind, then -3. So when you're trying to get something for somebody, whether it's an item or a favor, then you'll need to keep these modifiers in mind, and also their predisposition towards you depending on their personality, what you may have done to them in the past, and your general level of popularity, which is cool. Now we've got your resource feats. Instead of tracking resource points, like in the basic set, you just have a resource feat. So items have a resource rank instead of a cost. And so you do the standard kind of feat rules to determine whether something is within your range of being able to roll for it. And if it is, then you can roll for it, and the intensity will determine the difficulty of that feat roll. So pretty straightforward. And if you succeed, then you can buy the item. If you fail, then you can't. And you can't buy anything of that rank for the next week. But then you can make another attempt or try for a different item. You can also purchase something up to 1 rank higher than your resource rank through a lending institution. You make a resource feat each month of 2 ranks less for as many months as the rank number of the item. So that represents your payback of the loan to the bank. But for characters like Peter Parker, the example here, he is poor, so he's going to be making a lot of resource checks for everyday things, basically. You can also do combined actions and multiple feats. Individuals can help each other, so if you have somebody helping you, and if the lower of the 2 characters is within 1 rank of the higher, the character with the higher ability gets a +1 column shift. So that can help you make something possible that you can do by yourself. If you want to do more than 1 action in the same round, you can perform up to 3 non-combat actions in a round, or 1 combat action and 1 non-combat action. The difficulty of the feats is raised. Both feats are automatic. They both can be performed in a single round without worrying about anything. If the tougher action requires a green feat, then both actions will require yellow feats. If the tougher action requires a yellow feat, then both actions will require red feats. If the tougher action requires a red feat, then both actions may not be performed in the same round. Pretty straightforward, but another thing to keep track of when you're thinking about doing more than one thing in a round. So useful to have that noted down somewhere. And then we have movement. So they keep area movement concepts in this game. They're provided on the maps that we'll see later in the box set. And the endurance determines how many areas you can move through as before. So remarkable higher, you can move 3 areas per turn, but then powers can move you beyond that. So things like super speed or flight or whatever. And then there's the idea of range movement, which we also saw in the basic revised set, I believe. So range movement is basically if you want to change areas into sort of inches to use miniatures or stuff like that. Then there's vertical movement. So we learned about this in the other 2 sets as well. Climbing, you can move up using stairs, ladders, fire escapes, and elevators. You'll be slower getting to the top of a building than if you have a power that is movement related that can get you up to the top quicker. Downward movement, typically the reason you do that is either diving down to save somebody if you're flying, or just falling. So the first round, you fall at 3 floors per round, second round 6 floors per round, third round 10 floors per round, fourth and further 20 floors per round. The falling itself doesn't damage you, it's the sudden stopping when you connect with the sidewalk, as they say here. Treat the situation as a charging attack on an inanimate object with the ground's material strength acting as the body armor of the target. So they give you an example of how that works. And you can also catch items, as we saw in the revised set, to try and arrest your fall in some way. You can also catch people while falling. They also talk about parachutes and how they work here. Flight and gliding. So the acceleration rules here are not optional anymore, they're baked in. So flyer can't reach his ultimate speed in a single round. So you can move up to your movement as limited by endurance in the first round, and then you increase by that increment each round until you reach your maximum. That makes flying a bit less ridiculously powerful. Deceleration is a bit easier, so if you're flying, you can always have your current speed rounding fractions up, but if you slow to 0 areas, may fall depending on the nature of your powers. If you are landing and you're moving at more than 3 areas per round, you make an agility feat with failure indicating a slam result. But if you can hover or can reduce yourself to 0 speed, you don't have to worry about landing. And then they talk about altitude, diving. If you're diving, you will gain speed as you move down. And pulling out of a dive requires an agility feat. And they talk about obstructions. So if you are flying and you want to open a door or window, then you have to either go through it or stop to open it. Turns by a flying character counts as moving into an area if you're turning up to 90 degrees. And if you want to do a turn 90 degrees or more, you have to make an agility feat. And if you didn't do that, then you didn't overcome the forward momentum and you continue in the original direction. It applies to both vertical and horizontal turns. Low altitude flight, gliding, then we get into swimming. That of course leads us to drowning. So you can hold your breath a number of rounds equal to your endurance rank number, and then you must make a green endurance feat, then a yellow in the next round, and then each following round you have to make a red endurance feat or start drowning. Drowning results in unconsciousness, loss of 1 endurance rank per round. When you reach endurance 0, you die. Long distance movement. This gives you an idea for how far you can go in a given period of time. Then they have exhaustion as a new option here. So in general, a hero can move without stopping for a number of rounds equal to their endurance rank. They give an example here of dealing with your endurance, your speed, and your long distance movement capabilities. So given your rank, they give you the areas per round, the miles per hour speed, the lower end and the upper end, the areas per round. Then there are speed feats. You can move the equivalent of 1 additional area if you make a yellow strength feat roll. If you make a green roll, then you just couldn't get that far. A white result indicates that you lost control and you roll a slam against yourself, basically. You can also teleport. The teleporter power rank number indicates the maximum distance you can port as if the character were flying. Unlike flying, you don't cover the distance in between the 2 points. And there's no speed involved unless you were moving before the teleport. And multiple teleports require an endurance feat, with failure indicating dizziness for 1 to 10 rounds, which means you can't teleport anymore. And you roll a d10 to see how long your dizziness lasts. You can also teleport into an object and take damage equal to the material strength of the object, which body armor does not protect you from. And there's leaping, so there's a specialized form of movement that's tied to strength instead of endurance. And characters like the Hulk can leap quite huge distances, and they're possible by a green strength feat up to the stated distance. If you try to leap half the listed distance, then it's considered an automatic feat. If you want to go one additional area, you can make a red strength feat, and you can leap down and use your leaping power to take no damage from the fall, essentially. And then we get to combat. So again, we're pretty familiar with the basics of this from before. Again, we have the same basic concepts as before. So Slugfest is your fighting ability combat. So this is where you're face to face with somebody and you're beating them down. You roll your feat with your fighting ability, and the result you then look on the effects table. So every possible combat action you look up here, depending on the level of your feat roll, that'll correspond to a miss, hit, slam, or stun. If it's a blunt attack, each type of attack has a different set of possible results. If you or the opponent get hit with a possible stun, slam, or kill, you need to then roll on these tables against your endurance to see what result actually happens. So that's the basic idea. And there are different types of Slugfest combat. So blunt attack is with your bare hands or another blunt weapon. And blunt weapons can give you an increase in damage. Edged attacks will use a different table and open you up to the possibility of a kill result, which can be bad for your karma. So be careful about that. Range attack, this is projectiles and energy weapons and throwing stuff. If you're the Hulk, you want to throw a rock. If you want to throw Captain America's shield, all this kind of stuff, you will use agility and make a feat roll for that. The range attacks will start at the attacker and proceed in a direct line. Captain America has on many occasions bounced his shield off several targets, hit someone from behind, but this is a power stunt. Range is determined by the number of areas the missile, energy blast, or whatever passes through from start to finish. Each floor of elevation is also counted as an area. They also talk about, if you're using a projectile, then you need to consider possible obstructions like walls, windows, doors, or other obstacles. And there are rules for how physical weapons or materials or beams will be affected by those materials. So, for example, physical weapons lose momentum as they pass through physical material. Both physical and energy weapons lose their accuracy as they pass through intervening material. Any weapon passing through an intervening structure suffers a -2 CS. A shooting attack is the most normal type of range attack, and that'll be projectile weapons. And they mention like a handgun, rifle, or other implement of destruction that's all too common in the USA. You can score a miss, hit, bullseye, or kill. A bullseye does damage as per normal, but you can also do a special targeted attack. So it's like a called shot. You can shoot their shooting hand to disarm them, and it should never be fatal, according to this. Now, if you get a kill result, then the opponent has to roll endurance and see whether they survive the killing attack. Greater chance of killing with a shooting, edge weapon, or energy attack than for any other type. So bear that in mind. Edge throwing attacks are another type. So again, you use agility. You have miss, hit, stun, or kill results. You have the possibility of a stun rather than a bullseye. Then you have a blunt throwing attack where you can get miss, hit, bullseye, or stun. You have energy attack. This is stuff like radiation, lightning bolts, or fire blast. You get miss, hit, bullseye, or kill. Force attacks. So these are things like the repulsive blast of Iron Man, Invisible Woman's force field, stuff like that. And there you can get miss, hit, bullseye, or stun, so they don't kill. Body armor, force fields, and powers may affect the success and damage of a range attack. So body armor, the big controversy about this game is still here. But again, I really think it's not a big issue in most games. It's one of those, it can be an issue, but it's more of an issue when you're kind of doing combat in the danger room with no sort of real world chaos going on. In a real game where things are exploding and new people are turning up and reinforcements are happening, then, the body armor will be helpful, but not invulnerable. I would say, again, before you adopt any house rules, try it as written and then see how you get on with it. Go from there. There are plenty of house rules out there for how to deal with body armor and weaken it if you think it's too strong. We have some range modifiers as well. So this comes in terms of your strength attack if it's a thrown weapon. So your range is limited by your strength rank. Then we have wrestling combat. It's less effective than Slugfest, but basically allows you to restrain the opponent. You can do a grappling attack, which can give you a miss, partial hold, or hold. A miss means you just miss, and you can't do any other attacks. Partial hold means you've grabbed onto some part of the opponent, so they can still do stuff, but they get a -2 column shift, and they can't move if their strength is equal to or lower than yours. No damage is inflicted. A full hold means that you've got them fully restrained and you can damage the target up to your strength level, so subject to body armor. Escaping is the action opponents will use to try to get out of a hold. You can miss, escape, or reverse. A miss means you're still held and nothing happened. An escape means you're free of the hold. You can move at half speed, but you can't do anything else. If you get a reverse, then you're free of the hold and can either move up to half distance, try to re-grapple the opponent in turn, or do any other action at a -2 column shift. A grabbing attack is fun. This is when you try to take away a vital possession, like, a gun or a bomb or some piece of equipment from the opponent. A miss indicates that you didn't pick it up. A take result means that the attacker has full possession of the item if the strength is equal to or greater than the target's. If not, considered as a miss. A grab result indicates that you've taken the item whether or not the strength of the opponent was higher. That's pretty good. A break result means the attacker succeeded and may either depart with the item immediately or potentially set off the item. So in that case, you make a second roll against the material strength. If the right result is made, the item is damaged, broken, or goes off. So yeah, you can break stuff. Body armor has no effect on the initial hit of a grappling attack as no damage is done. Charging is your endurance-based attack, so this is where you need a run-up. You have to move at least one area to reach the enemy combatant, and for each area you move through, you get a +1 CS up to a maximum of 3. And charging attacks, again, are resolved on the universal table. You can get a hit, miss, hit, slam, or stun. Miss means that you continue your move for half the character's speed, rounded up, after the attack. Any change in direction will require another agility feat. If you get a hit, you inflict your maximum current endurance, or your body armor rank and damage, whichever is higher, plus 2 additional points of damage for every area covered by the attack. If you score a slam, then you inflict damage as for a hit, and the opponent will have to roll to see if they get slammed. If you get a stun result, you roll damage, and the opponent may be stunned. You can also charge inanimate objects, like busting through a door or a wall, which is pretty fun. Then your defensive options. So dodging is an agility ability, and it reduces the column shift of the attacking character. So if you're dodging, you can only move half your speed in the turn. You can't do any charging attack. You can only perform one other action that turn maximum, including making an attack. So first you make an agility feat at the start of the turn, as soon as initiative is determined, and then the result of that feat will give you a result of either no shift, -2, -4, -6 CS. And those results are applied to any incoming attacks. Those are only on attacks stated in the first part of the round. So if things change unexpectedly, then that shift won't apply. Otherwise, dodging is really useful to get you out of the way of potentially really damaging characters. You can also do evasion, so that's a fighting feat. You're trying to duck and weave and look for a weak spot, only effective against adjacent attackers. So you declare that during the declaration phase of the turns, and you make no attacks, but you roll on the universal table and check the evasion column. You can get an auto hit, the worst result, evasion, evasion +1, and evasion +2. An auto hit means that the result of the opponent's attack will be at least a green result, even if a white was rolled. An evasion result indicates the character dodged the blow from that attacker, and you take no damage. An evasion +1 or +2 indicates they dodged the blow, and you can get a +1 or +2 CS to their counterattack on the next round. Put yourself in an advantageous position. Then you got blocking, so use strength here, and it lessens the damage of physical attack, including grappling, slugfest, edged and blunt throwing attacks, force attacks, but not shooting, and energy attacks, and wrestling, but not charging. So you're trying to meet force with force. So imagine Captain America holding up his shield to block. Use the individual strength as a kind of form of body armor. Essentially, you roll against the strength on the universal table. You get -6 CS, -4 CS, -2 CS, and +1 CS. That indicates the level of body armor gain taken from the strength of the character. The amount of body armor you gain temporarily is effectively limited by the amount of strength you have. So the Hulk can block things very effectively, Captain America pretty effectively, but not as effectively, and so on. Then you have the catching maneuver. So if you want to catch fallen objects or teammates, then use the agility feat, and you can get on the universal table an auto hit, miss, damage, or catch. Auto hit means you tried to catch them, but it didn't work, and they slammed to the ground. A miss means that you've missed catching the object. If the object you was trying to catch was directed against him as an attack, the attack proceeds at a +1 CS to hit as well. If you get a damage result, you caught the object, but you might be damaged as a consequence. So you treat the catch as a damage inflicting attack on the object or character being caught. You caught somebody, but you didn't do it very artfully, and they're hurt. A catch result means that you were caught with no ill effects to the hero attempting to catch or the object or character being caught. You suffer a -3 CS on all attempts to catch objects directed against the character specifically, and you must have an unearthly agility to catch small, fast-moving items like bullets, amazing to catch large, thin projectiles like arrows, remarkable to catch others thrown projectiles, and any agility to try and catch a falling character or object. And then talk about the slam, stun, and kill results. So as before, we have the no slam stagger, where you get knocked back a step or two, so you're not adjacent to the target anymore, but they can still act next turn. If you get a one area result, the target is knocked one area away. If they take damage, like through body armor or whatever, the attacker chooses the direction of the slam. If no damage was inflicted, the defender chooses the direction. A grand slam, the target gets knocked away with a speed equal to the strength of the attacker taken as ground speed. So if you hit somebody with unearthly strength, you send them 10 areas, and the direction is determined in the same way as a one area slam. A stun result, you can get 3 types. You can be knocked out for 1 to 10 rounds, roll a die, and you can't take any actions. You can be knocked down, take no action for 1 round, or you can have no effect. The kill result is, of course, the most dangerous one. If you roll on the universal table, you roll your endurance, like with the others. If you get an endurance loss, the character's endurance is reduced by 1 rank, and the character is dying. We'll continue to lose endurance at 1 rank per turn until the situation is cleared. And the ES result indicates the character is affected as an endurance loss only if the method of attack was edged or shooting attack. Any other attack form is considered no effect, and no effect means you take your damage, but you're not killed. Then we have powers in combat, so they talk about body armor specifically. Body armor reduces potential damage by the power rank number of the armor. Damage reduced below 0 is counted as no damage, and the target cannot be affected by a stun, slam, or kill result from that attack. The above applies to all attack forms except energy powers. The rank number of body armor is reduced by 20 points when dealing with this attack form. So that's useful. Force fields are another type of defense which functions similarly to body armor, but they protect against energy attacks and are -10 against all other attacks. A force field can be overloaded by taking damage exceeding that of the power rank. If the force field is personal, the system switches off or overheats, and the hero is affected by excess damage and may be stunned or slammed. If the force field is projected in nature, the user must make a psyche feat roll against the intensity of the attack or become unconscious. The force field hangs around long enough to protect those within. If you have force field and body armor, you can use one or the other against any attack, but not benefit from both at the same time. The only difference is that, as we saw in the revised set, if somebody projects a force field in front of somebody who has body armor, then they can benefit from that. But you can't do it yourself, even if you have a force field power of your own. If you have resistance, then a certain attack form is permitted an additional defensive roll. So you can make a feat roll against the attack, treating the damage to the intensity, and if you're successful, the attack inflicts no damage. If the feat fails, the resistance still provides body armor against that attack form. Then you have claws. They're given a power rank and material strength. We have Wolverine as an example. So he has a class 1000 material claws, but they only inflict good damage against materials without a material strength rank. Against materials with the strength rank, Wolverine shreds with unearthly ability. He inflicts 10 points and checks the edge weapon table when attacking. The same approach is used for swords. They don't affect force fields. They would inflict their normal damage, though, to overload them. Then we have, of course, the column shifts. For big targets, they're easier to hit. Small targets are harder to hit, but if they're attacking somebody bigger, it's easier for them to hit the big target. Then we have special cases, which are covered under the tactics here. So non-adjacent weapon combat. So if you have the ability to stretch, for example, maybe you can do a slugfest combat against somebody who's not close to you. Or if you grab like a school bus, then you could smash somebody, but they should be within one area of each other. You can hold your fire. Even if you have initiative, you can hold off your attack until the opponent is within the best possible range. So you don't have to attack until the opponent is about to strike. Pulling your punches, of course, is a good thing. Powers and such will often say inflicts up to a certain level of damage. If it's not a gun or something like that, you can control the damage level due to your own control over the power and make sure that you don't randomly kill somebody and lose lots of karma. Because if you kill somebody, you lose all your karma straight away. You can also do multiple combat actions. So making 2 attacks in the same round means you need to do a remarkable intensity feat with fighting. If you make 3 attacks, you need an amazing intensity feat, and all multiple attacks are made up -1 CS to hit. If the fighting feat to make multiple attacks fails, you only get 1 attack and you get a -3 column shift. So there's a risk there. You also have your entangling weapons, ground strikes, shooting to neutralize, shooting to stun. Shooting to neutralize is shooting a weapon out of some somebody's hand. Shooting at stun is grazing them with a trick shot to knock them out, but not kill them. You can do combined attacks, so you have to be within 10 points of each other. The higher total is raised to the next rank of damage at the lowest point, so 88 for unearthly, etc. Provided the individual with the lower damage ability makes an agility feat. So that can help you bust through force fields or body armor if you team up. You can also do double teaming, so if somebody gets a hold or partial hold on a target, second attacker gets a +1 CS on attacks. You have a fastball special. That's something that we see with Logan getting chucked at somebody as a missile. The attack supposes the throwing character can lift and throw the thrown character. The attack uses the thrower's agility to hit or the thrown's fighting ability, whichever the players involved choose. Damage is done by the thrown character as determined by endurance or by a normal slugfest attack, with the thrown character gaining benefits as for a charging attack, with pluses for speed. Then you've got your shockwave, which we saw in the revised set, blindsiding. So if you've been surprised, that person who is surprising you gets a +2 CS to hit, and the character getting hit may not add karma to any die rolls if you get a slam, stun, or kill result, so that's dangerous. Then you have shielding. This is where you jump in front of somebody to protect them from something. So in flight, you can be slammed regardless of the character's comparative endurance. That's because you're not moored to anything. Character in flight may charge with normal limitations, but if you're engaged in a power dive, dropping straight down, you can get a column shift of +4 CS, with possible damage to self as well. If you fire at a moving target, it's harder to hit, so a -1 CS applies to any target moving up to 5 areas, -2 CS for 10 areas per turn, and -4 to those moving any faster. The exception to this is attacks on a character who is charging directly at the firer. Then since they're both approaching each other, there's no difference. You can set up an ambush, so as soon as the character enters a location where the ambush is set up, then an ambush gets a +1 CS to hit, because they don't see it coming. Aiming is an optional rule. Spend a turn aiming, you get +1 CS to hit. It's also point blank range, so if you're adjacent to a non-fighting opponent, you get +3 CS to hit that opponent. If the opponent is fighting or engaged in slugfest or wrestling, there's a -3 CS to hit with missile weapons. Luring, try to make an opponent come after you. Try to persuade the opponent into coming after you rather than somebody else. Opponent will get a +2 CS on attacks, but at the moment of attack, the defender can pull a defensive move of his or her choice. If the attack misses, the lured character will hit whatever was directly behind the luring character's choice. So when a character decides to spend karma, they give you a simple summary here. You automatically spend karma just by saying you're going to spend it. You automatically spend 10 karma just by saying that you're spending it. That's the minimum. You're always going to spend 10. And then add the number of points equal to the amount of karma you spend to modify the roll by that same number. We got life, death, and health, which is sort of already gone through before, but this just summarizes and adds a bit more detail. Once you start losing endurance ranks, you keep going down 1 rank per turn, and when you get below shift 0, you're dead. But you can stabilize yourself for 1 round by spending 50 points of karma, change from the original set. You can spend a lot of karma. You can gain another endurance feat when you slip a level by spending 200 karma points. If you succeed, you're just unconscious and not dying. Or help from your friends. So if somebody comes to you and they have first aid or whatever, then you will still be unconscious and will be for 1 to 10 more hours. So that can be from first aid or summoning help, pulling the character to safety, or even just checking to see if they're okay. Somebody who has first aid and medicine talents may be able to aid individuals who have reached shift 0 health. Regaining consciousness, once you have finished the number of rounds that you've been stunned or knocked out, you go back to normal, essentially. You can act normally after that. If you get 0 health, you get automatically knocked unconscious for 1 to 10 turns, and then make an endurance feat. Failure indicates that you're still unconscious, and check again in another 1 to 10 turns. Success means that you have regained consciousness, and you regain health equal to your endurance rank. So 10 turns after your character takes damage, you regain health equal to the endurance rank number, provided you're not unconscious. For healing, over time, you generally heal your endurance rank number in the hour following the last damage. If you take further damage, then the time is measured from that point. And some characters obviously have healing abilities, like Wolverine or Deadpool or whatever, and they can get more rapid healing and recovery. Then we have special cases of robots being reactivated, so they die in a bit of a different way. Characters who lost endurance ranks have a -2 CS until the endurance is returned to original levels. 1 endurance rank is healed per week in normal action. 1 is healed per day if you're in a hospital under a doctor's care. If you slip to shift 0 endurance, you're in danger of having 1 or more abilities impaired. You roll for each physical ability above good, and failure indicates the ability is now reduced to the next lowest printed number. They can be modified upwards afterwards only by experience. Ouch. So then we have karma. You gain and lose karma at the end of a battle or conflict, at the completion of a task, or at the end of a session or adventure. And they have tables that tell you the basic types of stuff that allows you to gain or lose karma. So you gain it through heroic actions and personal actions and gaming actions, and you can lose it through doing bad stuff like violent crimes, destructive crimes, theft, robbery, misdemeanors, national offenses, local conspiracies, national conspiracies, global conspiracies, or other crimes like fraud, forgery, counterfeiting, whatever. If you catch a criminal and you hand them over to be arrested, you will get the maximum kind of karma benefit for that. Saving lives get you karma, defeating foes get you karma, but only if the opponent has an ability or power of remarkable or higher. So small fry villains don't count. You can also lose for heroic or unheroic acts. So these can be permitting crimes to occur, like just letting something happening because you're busy doesn't excuse you from losing karma. If you get defeated by a bad guy or bad guys, then people think, oh wow, he sucks, and you lose 20 karma. If you have more than 3 witnesses, you lose 40 karma. You can also end up damaging property in your super battle, especially with things like great slams and knocking through buildings and so forth. Sometimes you can level whole city blocks. For every area that takes damage, each hero involved will lose 5 points. Villains don't lose anything because they don't care. Almost every hero has a code against killing, and if you kill an opponent or through an action you allow them to die, then you lose all your karma. Goes straight to 0. Karma that you've been holding for advancement or building things previous to that in a separate pool is not affected by this, but your current karma that you can use for rolls is completely gone. Accidental deaths don't mitigate the effect. It's just if it's anything due to your action or inaction, then that's it. Noble deaths don't count. So if somebody, self-destructs to save you, that's a noble thing to do. You didn't ask them to do it, so you don't lose karma for that. You can also get karma from your personal actions, your personal commitments. If you have a secret ID, every week karma awards for doing your normal heroly duties, depending on your employer, that can be different things. You need to keep up your tasks and commitments, your training, all that sort of stuff. You do acts of charity to gain popularity. If you end up getting a negative popularity, it doesn't mean you can't be a hero. It just means, the Hulk might be terrifying to most people and he can level entire city blocks and lose karma all the time. His karma might go negative, but he can use that to intimidate people to get out of the way at a key moment and therefore still do something heroic, even though he's not got a heroic karma status. That's pretty cool. You can also gain karma from good roleplay. If you manage to do something that stumped the judge and they had to try and figure something out, they can give you an award of up to 15 points if you come up with new and imaginative ways of dealing with the situation. And humor award. So if you get a chuckle from somebody, you should get 5 points of karma for that. And then they have a nice summary listing here of all the different things. Then there are karma pools. So this is formed by a group of heroes as a common source of karma. 2 or more consenting characters may contribute up to their present karma levels to form a karma pool. They can be temporary or permanent. Typically, permanent pools will be for, groups that stay together for a long campaign, or groups that are an established supergroup like the Avengers or the X-Men or whatever. All members of the pool may draw from that pool, even if the other members are not present, but you can set some bylaws to that, like who can join in on taking out of the pool and who can join the pool, etc. Any group awards can be added to the karma pool directly or split into equal shares for those who belong to the pool, and individual losses are taken from the individual first and then from the karma pool. If a member of a karma pool kills a character, both his individual karma and that of the karma pool to which he belongs is reduced to 0. That's why the X-Men kept such an eye on Wolverine all these years. So you can dissolve or leave a karma pool, and you can only remain in one karma pool at a time. So then we have your uses of karma, so you can spend karma to manipulate die rolls, we talked about before. You can modify results in combat. You can use them for power stuns, so you have to use them for power stuns, in fact. Building things, which is in chapter 4, so karma will help you to successfully build stuff. And you can put karma aside for character advancement, giving you additional levels or talents or abilities. So ability advancement means you increase your FASERIP abilities. Resource advancement means you gain more resources, increase your wealth or your influence. Popularity means, you put out a PR campaign, or, power advancement increases the superhuman abilities you already possess, so you're fine-tuning your powers. You can add powers through experimentation. You can gain new talents from those listed on the talent table, and you can gain new contacts. So this advancement pool is not often used, they say, because you tend to develop contacts organically during a campaign, which makes sense. Karma put aside may be put there for one of the 7 purposes above only. You can't have more than one advancement fund set up. Raising an ability about 1 rank number costs 10 times the current rank number of that ability. Oh, and if you want to go from one rank to the next rank, you have to spend an additional 400 karma points for what they call cresting. So you move up a full rank with that advancement of 1 point. Big thing here in the advanced set is that your power ranks now are not just a single set number, but they are actually, the full range of integers from 0 to 100. Each time you advance, if you go from 14 to 15, you'll spend 140 points. 15 to 16, you'll spend 150 points. And then if you move on to the next rank, you'll need to spend another 400 points to do that. You're just more fine-tuned as far as how your advancement works. It slows advancement down significantly, I think, as well, which, it has pluses and minuses. I mean, on the good side, in the comics, heroes tend to stay at the same rough power level for a long time unless they're a new hero introduced and we're just getting to learn the scope of their power. But heroes that have been around for ages, we kind of know what they can do, and a sudden increase in strength would be weird. So, a gradual refinement of their abilities in a particular way would require a lot of time, investment, and effort to go beyond what they could do before. So that's reflected by this system. So you can also advance your resources. Cost is 10 times the rank's number plus 200 points for cresting into the next rank. Popularity, so it's 10 times the current rank number. There's no cresting cost. And you must have performed at least one publicized act of charity in the past 3 weeks. For power advancement, you can spend 20 times the rank number gained, and the cost for cresting is 500. So boosting up your powers is pretty expensive in the advanced game. If you think about the karma rewards, they're not very high. So you really need to do a lot of stuff to gain enough points to add to your power ranks. For talent additions, you can learn from other player characters at a cost of 2,000 points, or from NPCs at a cost of 1,000 points per talent. And says in brackets, this to get them out of the house. Contacts, so you can spend the advancement pool and seek them out. Contacts cost 500 points plus 10 times the resource rank number of the contacts. And there's a list of contacts built for the Marvel Universe in Appendix C that you can draw from. Popularity awards. Popularity is variable, just like karma. Popularity can reach negative value, unlike karma. They give you a quick summary of popularity awards and penalties. So if you defeat a normal villain, +0. Costume villain, +2. Defeated in public, -5. Cleared of charges, +10. Found guilty of charge, minus all your remaining popularity. Media attack, -5. Charity work, +2. Rescues, +2. So again, popularity moves fairly slowly. And if you're a mutant, any award or penalty is reduced by 1. So people tend to have pretty set opinions about mutants, and they're hard to shift. Then we get into equipment, hardware, magic, and more. This is some really cool stuff in here. So we have our shooting weapons. They have a price, which is the resource rank of the weapon. So again, you're doing a resource feat. You're not worrying about resource points like in the basic set. Each shooting weapon, they'll have a range, damage, type, so the results column used. The rate of fire, so the number of shots you can take per round. Number of shots you can take before it must be reloaded, which takes 1 round, unless you have certain talents like the bow skill. And the material strength of the item. So your weapon's going to be broken just like anything else. They have some common weapons listed with some details. And then we have the table of shooting weapons. So we've got cheap handguns or pistols, target pistols, variable pistols, gyrojet pistols, laser pistols, stun pistols, concussion pistols, plasma beams, machine pistols, rifles, hunting rifles, sniper rifles, assault rifles, laser rifles, stun rifles. So quite a few things. Then we carry on with concussion rifles, automatic rifles, shotgun bursts, riot guns, grenade launchers, submachine guns, machine guns, military, flamethrowers, bazookas, anti-tank weapons, light artillery, stun cannons, concussion cannons, laser cannons, heavy artillery, super heavy artillery, missile launchers, regular bows, long bows, compound bows, and crossbows. So yeah, they cover all the bases here. And they give you some details about each of the specific weapons along the side here. And then we have the ammunition table. So regular bullets and stuff don't cost a lot. But when you get to artillery and missiles and so forth, then you need to start worrying about cost ranks, power packs for, laser rifles or plasma rifles, stuff like that. And special kind of shots like armor piercing shots, rubber shots, explosive shots, canister shots, heat seekers. So these are all, going to give you different cost ranks here. Each successful roll will give you the number of rounds listed here. And it's cool that there's different types of ammunition. So mercy bullets don't do damage, but do a remarkable intensity knockout drug over the skin of the target. Then there's AP shot, which is armor piercing, so that's pretty lethal. The opposite side of that is a rubber shot, inflicts slugfest damage as opposed to shooting damage. Pretty useful when you want to, use your guns but not murder everyone in town. Canister shot is like a shotgun but can shoot gas canisters with knockout gas, smoke, explosive canisters, double damage to all in target area and normal damage to all in adjacent areas, incendiary canisters which cause fires, and heat-seeking ammunition that seeks out the quickest path to the target. Then you have your melee weapons, knives, swords, great swords, axes, great axes, spears, clubs, shurikens, boomerangs, leather whips, and metal whips. They give you some of the special abilities of these. So great swords, for example, get a -2 CS if you try to use them with one hand because they're huge. Great axes have a similar thing. The boomerang with a throwing talent can cause it to return to their hands. Whips can make a grappling or grabbing attack from a distance as if the whip had a strength equal to its material strength. We got other weapons like frag grenades, smoke grenades, tear gas grenades, knockout grenades, flash grenades, concussive grenades, sonic grenades, and missiles. And they're expensive. Of course. And there are 3 readily available type of missiles. The standard missile, which have a body, control, and speed like a vehicle. The high-tech missile, which has higher control. And the high-speed missile, which has a higher rank and speed. So we've got more types of missiles and grenades and stuff, different types of payloads, different types of guidance, and then vehicles proper. So again, we have a few different categories. We've got road vehicles, off-road vehicles, railed vehicles, ground effect vehicles like hovercrafts, air vehicles like planes and gliders, and space vehicles, so spacecraft of various types, water vehicles, submersibles, and you have 4 stats for your vehicle. So you have the control, which is how well the vehicle responds to moving in different directions and stopping suddenly. Speed is the maximum safe speed. Body is the amount of damage it can take before the vehicle breaks down. Protection is a new attribute for vehicles and is basically the body armor the vehicle provides for those within. And then they give you the basics for how to drive a vehicle. So make control feats for sudden stopping, traveling off-road, turns of more than 90 degrees, or any sudden action at higher than listed speed. Off-road vehicles have the same limitations, but they can travel off-road. Railed vehicles check for sudden stops only. Ground effect vehicles check control as off-road, and air vehicles. Air vehicles check control for sudden turns of up to 45 degrees, and takeoff and landing in non-normal situations. Space vehicles check control for takeoff, landing, and sudden movements. Water vehicles and subs check control only for sudden changes in course. If you don't make a control feat, then you're out of control, and that has various consequences. You can slam into a barrier and cause lots of damage. Like with flying characters, you have a rate of acceleration. In both cases, you don't get to immediate top airspeed or ground speed. They mentioned that most aircraft need to have some open space to build up speed and reach monstrous ground speed, 9 areas per round, and then they can take off. Before that point, they're still considered a ground vehicle. Normal deceleration is similar, so a vehicle can drop its speed by 2 ranks each round until shift 0 is reached. You can drop speed by 3 ranks in a round by making a sudden stop with a control feat. An air vehicle has to be moving at the ground equivalent of its air rank speed in order to make a safe landing. So you can't just stop and plummet to the ground. That would be a bad idea. Then we have a huge list of vehicles, everything from sedans and mini cars to SWAT vans, tractors, bulldozers, ATVs, armored carriers, tanks, trains, bullet trains, monorails, helicopters, space shuttles, air cars, flying cars, the Concorde, which sadly doesn't exist anymore, destroyers, battleships, submarines, mini subs, and they've got their type, cost, and the 4 key stats: control, speed, body, protection. We've got some more details on air vehicle ascent and descent, and you can exceed the safe speed of your vehicle by 1 rank, but then all actions you take require a control feat, and any feats required are at 1 color higher for success needed. So you can do a vehicle stunt, much like you can do a power stunt. The judge will determine if the stunt is even possible with that vehicle, and then if the player is capable of pulling that off. So if your character has great agility, maybe they can do that. So if you have an applicable talent or background or a power, then that will help you, and you should need a green or yellow chance to pull off a feat. A relative novice would require a red feat. No karma needs to be spent to attempt the vehicle stunt. If you attempt the feat and fail, you're automatically out of control, which can lead to crashes, which, as we know, are very, very damaging if you can't get out of the way. And here they tell you what happens with damage to the vehicle. So if the damage is greater than the body, you make a feat roll against the body of the vehicle that's taken damage. So if the damage is greater than body and you roll a red feat, you get body -1 column shift and you take damage. Yellow, you get speed -1 CS and make a control feat. Green, make a control feat at -1 CS. White, everything is at -1 CS and you're out of control. Damage equal to the body. If it's red, no damage to vehicle or passengers. Yellow, body -1 CS, damage to passengers. Green, speed -1 CS, control feat. White, control -1 CS and need a control feat. Damage less than body. Red and yellow means no damage. Green means body is -1 CS and you need a control feat. White means control -1 CS, damage to passengers, and a control feat. Of course, you can use vehicles in combat. You can be shot at, attacked, or be used to attack in various ways. And then they get into the specifics of different vehicles and what they can do. I think there's quite a lot of stuff here. It gets more complicated with things like tanks that have weapons and jets and military aircraft, helicopters, all that kind of stuff. And it just goes on and on and on. There's loads of these, including the space shuttle, the lunar shuttle, sailboats, destroyers, battleships, submarines. And here we go. Here's the section I was talking about. So setting up house. This is where you need it to set up a base of operations. So some street level heroes operate out of their homes, like Spider-Man and Daredevil, but groups like the Avengers, the X-Men, they have some kind of base. So this section gives you rules on how to build up a base, which is awesome. So the building is the frame into which the headquarters equipment is placed. So you need to have enough space for the equipment you need, plus space for the inhabitants and living quarters. Basically, they give you some tips on how to determine the official size of the HQ, and cost will be a reflection of location as well as the size. Material strength is the strength of the walls and floors. Floor can support a load equal to its material strength plus 2 CS over time, and a higher amount for temporary periods. So yeah, when you want to set up your headquarters and you worked out the material strength and the size and the cost that you're dealing with, there's some HQ packages that they have here that really simplify the process for you. So, a simple 1-bedroom apartment is feeble or excellent in cost. It's a small size, material strength good. You go all the way up to large manors, mansions, office suites, brownstone, 30+4 office buildings, large warehouses, large factories, and these will all have established costs, sizes, and material strengths. Then within those, you can fill them with rooms. They're packages that cost varying amounts that will give you useful rooms, like living room package, dining room package, kitchens, libraries, computer rooms, communications, crime files, workshops, labs, offices, rec rooms, gyms, pools, danger rooms, like in the X-Men headquarters, conference rooms, medical packages, power rooms, garage packages to store vehicles, hangars for using a single air vehicle, docking for sea or sub vehicles, porches, storage, bathrooms, and closets, which are assumed to be built in, so they don't cost anything. Security packages don't occupy space, but these give you things like burglar alarms with some sort of computer code or card identification. If you go for a higher cost system, you can get like retina scans or whatever, and at the highest level, you'll get full body scan with the identification program to determine hostility. So if you get a hostile person trying to enter the headquarters, the system could activate defense systems. And then you have, accordingly, defense packages, which could present entangling tentacles or nets or lasers, stun rifles, pit traps. And again, the higher the cost you pay, then you'll get higher intensities of those defense mechanisms. You'll also have trophy rooms, imprisonment rooms, so you'll have some restraining devices, and then fire protection. So this is sprinkler systems and stuff like that. So you can also do multiple rooms of the same type. And obviously you need enough bedrooms for all your heroes in your group. So you need multiple of those, but you'd also need potentially backup rooms. Like if you have a computer system that's very important to your investigations, you might want to have a couple in case one gets destroyed. Then there are salaries and sundries and other costs. So you'll need fire extinguishers to help put out fires. You need fire hoses for riot control or to do damage to people, or they can burn down fire at remarkable intensity. Get silencers for your weapons. Sniper sights can go on your weapons, give you a higher initiative roll, but they're considered illegal. Infrared sights, they permit the user to see 5 areas in the dark. Tripods give you +1 to CS to hit with big military weapons. Flashlights, of course, are useful for low light. Polarized lenses provide good resistance to light attacks. Mace is a small 1-area weapon that inflicts a mist of typical intensity tear gas. You can have a gas mask to avoid gas attacks. Asbestos suits are good for protection against fire. Flak jackets will help protect you from physical damage at a good level. Beta cloth is worn by agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and provides typical protection from physical attacks and excellent protection from heat and radiation. Radiation suits are lined with lead and provide incredible protection against radiation. Flare pistols are good to catch people's attention. Of course, you got cameras. Personal computers. They consider personal computers to have poor reason for problem solving. At excellent cost, the user can get a modem that links his machine to a net with other machines. That's a little bit outdated. Of course, nowadays, every device we have has AI in it that can reason to some level. So certain anachronisms of the era of publication need to be taken into account. You can also get caltrops to inhibit people's ability to move around, handcuffs to restrain people, inhibitor bands, which reduce the use of powers, nullifier bands, they can freeze up high-tech power suits, a stasis ray, they have monstrous intensity and immobilize you for as long as the ray is in effect. A spear gun is like a crossbow but fire its bolts underwater. Scuba gear allows you to breathe underwater for 2 hours and dive to moderate depth. Roller skates, they give you a listed speed as if endurance was 3 ranks higher. Rocket packs allow you to fly at excellent speed. Here we have all the other stuff listed with the price and notes. And what their effects and so forth. So salaries, you'll need to pay people to work as security guards, office employees and stuff for your headquarters. If it's big enough, you might need some robots to work for security reasons or to take care of simple business around the base, but they're considered non-sentient, and that's the standard robot. The sentry robot is able to identify hostility and threat level, and they have some weapons. The talent robot is designed for a certain purpose. So the Avengers have firefighting robots, one ability at remarkable level, and all others are excellent. You can also build robots yourself, and those will be talked about in the building things section. So now we have magic. So magic in the advanced advanced set is the duplication of superhuman powers from a magical base, which again is what we saw in the other core sets. Again, I recommend the Realms of Magic supplement as a way to get a little bit deeper into this stuff. But, you know, it works well enough. I mean, the amount of powers that are in the system is somewhat of a limiting factor when you're trying to be a magician, because typically the Sorcerer Supreme, for example, can do pretty much whatever, you know, rewinding time, all this kind of crazy stuff. But they break down magic powers into 3 different types. You have personal, universal, and dimensional, and these are based on the power sources where you get your magic from. Personal energies are those that derive from the character themselves. Universal are those tapped from the character's home dimension. Dimensional energies are from other dimensions, the dimension of Dormammu or something like that, if they're a dark magician. And we have the magical powers table, so it's all the available powers that are geared towards a magic using character, and it characterizes them under personal, universal energies and dimensional energies. Each of those have different side effects, basically. So dimensional energies mean you have to contact some other being, and they could be unfriendly, or they could try to cause you harm. Personal energies are automatically available, but you need to do a psyche feat, and you can push yourself too far. Universal energies, you can end up reducing your psyche by draining all this power, and if you reduce your psyche below good, you can't cast spells anymore, and you typically need to have your hands and mouth free to do these kind of spells. So it's interesting that they've done the dividing of the power duplication into these 3 different categories. It gives Magic a bit more flavor, and again, I think these rules are totally usable, but I would take a look at the Realms of Magic supplement and see if there's anything you want to port over. It's not made for the advanced set, but again, you can port it over without much of an issue. And then we have some details about the dimensional energies. The level of hostility of the being you're contacting will affect, you know, how likely you are to gain power and be successful with your dimensional energy spell. There are also shifts that can happen for casting spells. So if the target is from a different dimension, you get -1 CS. If the target is in astral form, more than 30 feet in size, or occupies more than one area, that's -2 CS. +1 CS if the spell is familiar to the mage or the powers he invokes. +2 if the spell is cast in ceremony, and if it comes from an ancient book or tome. +3 if the target of the spell is a willing subject. So they have to be completely willing, not dominated into willingness. They also have a special power of Eldritch Bolts and Shields. So any starting mage may choose Eldritch Bolts and Shields as spells, each replacing that which would be a random power roll. The initial power ranks of these spells are always the psyche rank and rank number of the character. The Eldritch Bolt is a blast of magical power. The range is determined by the spell range table below, and damage is equal to the power rank. The bolt may reduce health or karma values. You can drain the luck of an opponent. That's pretty cool. The Eldritch Shield provides mystical binding armor equal to the caster's rank number, and is also proof against magical attacks or those attacks which arise from magic. Karma losses, however, for a magician are twice the standard rate, because there are strict restraints on your behavior if you want to be a powerful mage. On the plus side, the cost for a mage to perform power stunts is reduced. Only needs 10 karma if it's a personal or universal energy spell, 50 if it's a dimensional energy spell. So that's pretty cool. You can gain power stunts much easier. So that brings in a bit more of the mystical into things. Then we have the spell table here. So the spell rank gives you its duration of effect, which can be up to permanent from unearthly onwards. Area of effect, which could be an entire planet at shift levels, an entire dimension above that, 5 dimensions at class 5000, and everything everywhere beyond. Standard damage from none all the way up to the appropriate rank number, and then to infinite at beyond. So again, they can destroy reality at a glance effectively. And then we have hardware, building, modifying, and alien technology. So again, we saw a little bit of this in the revised set. This is just a bit more laid down in effective rules. You work out the effective cost using the applicable ranks, which they describe how to discover here, and certain functions of the item may shift the effective cost upwards or downwards. And then you make a resource feat to determine if you can afford it. If you can afford the item, then you can try to work on it and then invent something. So then you do a reason feat to determine if this invention really works. Weapons are defined by range, material, strength, and damage. Those will factor into the cost and the difficulty. For vehicles, the applicable ranks are speed, control, body, and protection, and you'll need to make a set type in which they fit at the start of the construction. If they occupy more than one area, it's +1 CS, -1 CS if craft offers no protection, and +1 CS if the craft is a GEV, ground effect vehicle, in other words. I give you examples for all this stuff. It's still a little bit confusing, I have to say. I always have to check these rules when somebody wants to invent something, but it is pretty cool that you can just build gadgets. I love games that let you make things, that expose the math behind stuff. Sadly, a lot of modern games don't necessarily do that, but this game, because the Marvel Universe is so wide and wild, they wanted you to have fun doing all the stuff you can do in the comics. plenty of examples here. Some special requirements can be set by the judge for certain types of items, and then you need your resource rolls to make sure that you can actually have the resources to build these things. And then you need to work out how much time it's going to take, and then you make a reason feat roll to determine, along with these modifications here, whether you were successful or not. So a red result means you do succeed, you get exactly what you designed it for. Yellow result is a working prototype, and you get -1 CS for all abilities until fine-tuned, which takes you another 1 to 10 days. Green result means it flies, but not for long. The device will fail in 1 to 10 turns, and it could result in destruction or damage. Repair is done as for a white result. Karma can be added, but in this case only, the amount of karma should be determined before the result is made. That's interesting. Kit bashing stuff together, modifying items, programming and reprogramming computers and robotic NPCs, and taking information from said things as well. Then there are repairs and how to manage those. So now we're into the appendices. So we're basically at the end of the main rules here. And the appendices, we've got the list of powers available to generated characters. So we have resistances of all different types here, and they describe each of those and how they work. Got the senses, which I believe are the same as in the revised basic set, including cosmic awareness, emotion detection, energy detection, magic detection, psionic detection, mutant detection, all this kind of stuff. Movement powers, you got flight, gliding, leaping, wall crawling, lightning speed, teleport, levitation, swimming, climbing, digging, dimensional travel. Amount of control types, you got earth control, air control, fire control, water control, weather control, animate objects. You can manipulate density, you can reduce it or increase it, you can transform the bodies of others, you can transform into an animal, you can control magnetics, electricity, light, sound, dark force, gravity, probability manipulation, which is very cool. That's the Scarlet Witch in action. You can nullify powers, that's another power, or energy reflection, that's pretty cool. Time control, you can speed up time around the hero, slow down time for all within one area, giving you multiple attacks. You can slow down time for injured or dying people. You can travel in time, but if you change the past, you end up in a diversion timeline and stuff like that. You can summon a duplicate from the past, future, or alternate dimensions. Then you got your body control powers, you can grow, you can shrink, density manipulation of yourself, you can phase in and out of reality, make yourself invisible, you can be plastic, you can elongate, shapeshift, body transform, animal transform, raise your lowest ability, you can blend in like a chameleon, you can absorb others' power. You can have an alter ego. Gives you an advantage. Being always visible as a superhero is not always the best. Alright, then we got distance attacks. So these are missile weapons that allow you to strike from distance. And they're different types. Projectile missiles. Ensnaring missile is what we rolled in my example roll. So that's a device that makes a form of grappling attack from a distance, which is pretty cool. This power can be increased in power rank by accepting limitations, like it can only affect one target, or it wears off after 1 to 10 rounds, or weakens by 1 material strength rank each turn, or it has limited number of charges. You can also have ice generation, fire generation, energy generation, sound generation, stunning missiles, corrosive missiles like acid, slashing missiles, so they have an edged attack element like throwing stars, nullifier missiles, they nullify inborn or technological powers with power rank intensity. Dark force generation, you can use the effects of dark force as a weapon and for developing power stunts. You can also create darkness and block out 3 areas simultaneously with power rank level of darkness. You got mental powers, ultimate skill means you're the best at what you do, your ability and that talent is considered unearthly as opposed to modifying the existing ability by a +1 or +2 CS. Those talents that may have ultimate skills are weapon skills, fighting skills, scientific skills. Other skills you can have all except student, heir to the throne, and leadership. Judge has final ruling on whether a talent is available for ultimate skill. You also have telepathy, from how that works. Image generation, so you can create vivid mental images and illusions. Telekinesis, you can move things around. Mind control is the overriding of the conscious mind. Of course, there are ways that the opponent can try to break that. You can have emotion control, which is pretty tough as well. Force field generation, so you can project force fields that will protect yourself and possibly other allies. Most effective against energy attacks with a -10 to everything else. We have animal communication and control. Mechanical intuition, specific form of ultimate skill that affects repairs, inventing, and building things. Cool, if you want to be a Reed Richards type. Empathy is like telepathy, but you know the surface emotions of the target, and you can't transmit emotions back to the target. Animal empathy is specific to animals. Psi Screen is an inborn power that resists mental scans and domination. All characters with any of the mental powers have this power at an equal level to their psyche. Mental Probe is where you search for a specific image in the mind of a target, which can be resisted. You can animate drawings, causing flat drawings and other representations to become fully operational items. You can possess people, which is a particularly strong form of mind control. Transferal basically completely transfers one consciousness into a target within one area. The target's consciousness is not put away in the back of the character's mind, but rather moved into the body of the character with the transferal power. Transferal always needs a red power rank feat to succeed and may be performed against creatures with higher psyches, those with mental powers, and alien beings or robots. When characters transfer consciousness, they also trade mental abilities, powers, and talents, but they don't trade physical abilities or powers, nor do they trade popularity, contacts, or resources. Astral projection, so you can leave your body and travel elsewhere in astral form. Psionic attacks, so you can use psionic blasts. The target must make a successful psyche feat or be knocked unconscious for 1 to 10 rounds. Straight up, just knock them out with your brain. Precognition, which is pretty cool. The future is mutable, but precognition in game terms allows you to scan alternative futures up to a week in advance and choose from them an image that may or may not come true. So the judge will give you a clue, essentially. It doesn't mean it's definitely going to happen, but it gives you something to work for or against. And they give you some suggestions on how to do that. Postcognition is basically knowing about what happened in the past. Within 1 day, postcognition, know what happened with a green. Within 1 week, you need yellow. Within 1 year, you need red. And further back, you won't get an accurate scan, but a red feat will give you a feeling as to a general past of the item you're studying. Plant control, so you can control the actions of plants, granting them temporary powers, including movement, growth, and rudimentary intelligence. But you have to be concentrating for those to keep working. Body alterations offensive, you can get extra body parts, and this is more detailed here. You get specific increases and benefits for different kinds of extra body parts. You can have extra attacks, you can have an energy touch, use an energy attack at touch range, and a bullseye is a possible stun instead of a bullseye. Paralyzing touch, that can knock people out for 1 to 10 rounds. You can have claws, of course, which could kill people. Rotting touch, which is just gross. Corrosive touch, which is also gross. Health drain touch, so you can suck the juice out of people. Blinding touch, which is pretty cool. Body alteration defensive. Of course, you got body armor. Could be natural or could be provided by equipment. Could be a high-tech battle suit. Water breathing. Absorption, you can absorb a certain type of damage and it will actually raise your existing health and even heal existing damage. Could temporarily raise your health above your normal maximum as well. Regeneration, so this is what we see with mutants with the healing factor. They can regenerate more quickly. Solar regeneration, you heal as in regeneration, but you have to be in sunshine to do it. Recovery, you recover from losses of endurance at a rank of 1 per day and makes a power rank feat to regain the lost rank. You can choose any resistance as a bonus power. Life support means you can survive under hostile conditions for longer than normal amounts of time, including, deep space, underwater, in lava, etc. Pheromones, you have a emotion control that affect the pleasure centers of the opposite sex. Yeah, you can attract people to you with your pheromones. Depending on what kind of game you want, may or may not be something you want to do. Damage transfer, so it's a relative of the health drain touch, but you transfer health between 2 separate targets on touching them. You can heal lost health and endurance ranks to others, but not to yourself if you have the healing power. Immortality means you don't age or die in a normal fashion. You can still suffer loss of endurance ranks, but when you get to shift 0 endurance, you don't die. You can't move or do anything until endurance reaches feeble. So if you throw an immortal guy into a volcano and nobody can get him out, then he's out of action for a while. Then you've got your talents in Appendix B. So we have your weapon skills. So they get you +1 CS on different types of weapons. Guns, thrown weapons, bows, blunt weapons, sharp weapons, oriental weapons. Okay, a little bit offensive, but we'll move on. Marksman, so this is for any distance weapon that requires line of sight. Weapons Master, any weapon that requires a fighting feat. Weapon Specialist, +2 CS with a single type of weapon. Fighting skills, you've got your different types of martial arts. So martial arts A, you can stun or slam an opponent regardless of their comparative strength and endurance. Martial arts B, gain +1 CS to fighting when engaged in unarmed combat. Martial arts C, you gain +1 CS to strength for grappling attacks, including damage. +1 CS to strength for escaping. +1 CS to agility for purposes of dodging. Martial arts D ignores the effects of body armor but not force fields for determining stun and slam results. The attack by the character with this talent does not have to inflict damage to force a check for possible stun and slam. So that's really good. Martial Arts E encourages quick hitting, and you get +1 to initiative rolls in unarmed combat. Wrestling, you are proficient in holds, and you get +2 CS when making grappling attacks, but no benefit in damage. Thrown objects, +1 CS with throwing attacks. Acrobatics, you're +1 CS when dodging, evading, or escaping. Tumbling, can make an agility feat to land feet first after any fall that does not inflict damage. Then you got your professional skills. So medicine will give you extensive knowledge of medicine and limited talents in healing, which is very useful. Law law, gives you legal knowledge and benefits reason feats. Law enforcement gives you the gun and law talents. Pilot gives you +1 CS for feat rolls with aircraft. Military +1 CS to all feat rolls related to military matters. And you can take a member of the armed services as a contact. Business finance +CS for feat rolls dealing with money. You get a contact in the professional category. Journalism, you get 2 contacts to those already generated. Engineering gets +1 CS to feats involving building things. Criminology +1 CS on all reason and intuition feats involving criminal activities. Psychiatry +1 CS on all feats involving the mind. Detective +1 CS to discover clues. In addition, you get a contact in crime, law enforcement, law, or espionage. Your scientific skills, you get +1 CS on the specific science involved, which is straightforward enough. Mystic and mental skills are quasi-powers. So trance allows you to slow your body functions to be assumed to be deceased. You reduce your need for food and water to a minimal level and regain endurance ranks at 1 rank per day. So it's a good way to heal up if you have this meditational ability. Mesmerism and hypnosis. It's a primitive form of mind control at the power rank number equal to the reason of the character with this talent. You can gain information like a mental probe, and you can implant post-hypnotic suggestions, but a hypnotic command will fade in 1 to 10 hours after it was given. You can't force somebody to do something they would not normally do or divulge information you would not normally reveal. Sleight of hand, so you can make things disappear and palm them away with agility +1 CS ability. Resist domination is a size screen for people without psionics. Basically, you can resist mental attacks as if the character had a mental power of psyche +1 CS. It's a passive talent, so it's always on. Occult lore means you have knowledge of occult mysteries, societies, runes, etc., and get +1 CS to reason feats about magic stuff. Mystic background means that you have some background in magical forces, and you may have magical powers with the approval of the judge. Other talents, you have artists, you can have language skills, first aid, which is very important for somebody to have in the group, in my opinion, along with medicine, repairing and tinkering for inventors, trivia, +1 CS to all reason feats. Performers gain karma for doing a week's worth of performance. Animal training, you can train animals to do certain stunts. Heir to fortune means you have minimum level resources of remarkable. May only be chosen by characters being generated. A student, you can only be chosen at the start of play. It cannot be gained through experience. New talents cost 1,000 karma points if learned from another PC, 800 if learned from outside. Students may maintain advancement totals for a talent along with other forms of advancement. Leadership, that means you have the brains and understanding of a cohesive group, and you're a benefit to the team. Any karma point pool to which you belong receives a 50-point bonus, provided you're recognized as the team leader. There are other skills and other talents that you can come up with as agreed by the judge. Appendix C is a list of the types of contacts that fit in the Marvel Universe. So professional contacts could be medical contacts, legal contacts, military, could be anything from, a sergeant at a local base to the Joint Chiefs of Staff, if it's Captain America. You can have a business world contact, which could be very high level if you're Iron Man, for example. Journalism contacts are poor in resources, but they have a lot of knowledge about the field of expertise. Crime contacts, who know all about what's going on in the underworld. Engineering means they can aid in the construction of devices. Psychiatry, they can help cure the criminal mind. Espionage, they can provide information up to a remarkable level, but it's harder to get top secret information. You can have a connection with another hero group, which can give you various advantages. You can have scientific contacts that will give you access to that character's scientific ability. You can have political contacts at the local, state, national, or other national, or international, or planetary level, but that's only available to alien characters. You can also have mystic contacts. So if you have contact with someone in the mystic arts, they're aware of extra-dimensional powers, or you could know somebody who dabbles in dark arts and they know about the occult, curses, and all that kind of stuff. Mythology is similar, but it's more about the actions of extra-dimensional beings and gods, like the Olympians and the Asgardians. The contact will specialize in one particular pantheon. Then we have our character sheet and the index, and again we have our power listing summary here on the back inside cover, and the slightly expanded and changed universal table. Now we have the judge's book. So this is 64 pages rather than 96. This is a really nice judge's book, actually. They say right from the get-go that they expect you to have played RPGs before, so they're not going to talk down to you in this one. They're going to explain to you your role as judge. You need to be able to answer questions, describe situations, handle mechanics, roleplay the NPCs, make rulings, about stunts and so forth. They give you some general tips about judging situations, how to assign intensities to feats. We have power rosters, so these are, the levels of FASERIP abilities that we would see with example characters and a description of that level of capability. For example, if you have an endurance of unearthly, you never tire, and that could be somebody like Thor or the Silver Surfer. Then we have have determining automatic and impossible feats. There's some tips on that. Judging combat. So they talk some more about the combat sequence and that you should mentally commit to your action before you ask the players what they're doing. So you don't want to change your mind after committing, because that basically is unfair to the players. Column shifts in combat. There can be a lot of those going on, so you just need to keep track of those. And there are some special circumstances, like night is a typical intensity darkness for feat rolls. Maximum sight range is 5 areas. Firing of weapons is done at -1 CS. Dark is excellent intensity darkness. Normal sight is limited to immediate area of the character, so about 2 feet. All feat rolls are -2 CS when in dark conditions, including combat and use of powers. Atmospheric conditions like weather can also affect fighting. So fog reduces sight. Rain reduces distance powers and throwing objects with 1 CS. Heavy rain extends that to all feats. It also slickens surfaces, so climbing and wall crawling. And control feats for vehicles are at -1 CS. High temperatures affects fighting effectiveness. And here we have a lovely set of intensity tables. So summaries of intensities for different types of feats and what can affect those, including other intensities like slickness of surfaces, radiation, campfires, diseases, temperatures, all kinds of stuff. And then we have a lovely summary of column shift table modifiers. You can see there's a load of those. So they go from negative to positive in ascending order. Modifiers to damage, modifiers to feat rolls. Got some more details about things like underwater combat, combat space and zero gravity, judging combat results, judging healing, recovery and how that works, judging power stunts. So this is a new one for the advanced set. You have to use some of your intuition and knowledge of the character to decide whether the player can attempt it. And the player attempting it is willing to make a significant investment of 100 karma just to try it. So remember that there is a cost. You should err on the side of being flexible, but just make sure it doesn't unbalance the game for them to have the stunt. And then we have the effects of certain types of materials in special situations. So fire and what it can do to surrounding materials, ice and similar effects and how it can reduce endurance, poisons and toxins, radiation-based attacks, what they can do, what happens when you're exposed to radiation, what happens when you're exposed to diseases. Things like holding your breath are included here, which obviously then can lead to drowning, and being in a vacuum. Airless space has the effect of monstrous cold as well as basically drowning you because there's no air. Then they talk a bit about contacts and resources. So contacts are there to provide you aid. Characters can get more resources through their contacts, so it's very useful. That can be services. Maybe they know a pilot who can fly the character somewhere, or a doctor who can do emergency surgery, something like that. Gathering information from contacts is modified by column shifts as for any popularity feat, but they mentioned you should use common sense with the table. If it's not something really important, then don't get too fussed about it. Then we have some more information about contacts and then judging building things. So the building things rules are a little bit complicated. They give you some hot tips about special requirements. If items duplicate a power, then there should be a special requirement for the item. And if the effective cost is greater than remarkable, then there's a chance requirement will be needed. So you make a feat roll for the effective cost and look at this table to decide how many special requirements it has. And then it'll give you examples of special requirements. Those are some nice options to start with, like special materials or special knowledge is needed. Judging in other dimensions. So you have the astral dimensions, which you can travel through with astral travel, mystic dimensions, places like Asgard, Olympus, and the dark dimension, where they're amenable to magic and are useful sources for magic. There is the microverses. Once a certain point of shrinking has been reached, called the Pym barrier, so shift decks are higher, and the shrinking individual goes into a microverse, where you stop reducing in size, and there are different physical laws in there. So that's pretty wild. Negative zone as well. It's an antimatter universe. There are a wide variety of alternate Earths. So, we're in Marvel 616, main universe, but there are many other Marvel universes as well. And we have an overview of the Marvel universe itself, how to run a Marvel-esque campaign, and they give you an example of building up a basic adventure. And as the judge, they tell you what you should be doing, running the bad guys, things that villains will typically do to fool with characters, villains and how they receive and lose karma. And they can only spend karma in 4 ways. They can build things, they can reduce damage, they can arrange an escape or a mysterious death, which means they could come back. Villains may prefer to have negative popularity because that will give them a rep as being evil and badass. You can also have random events that could happen that help drive interesting things for the characters. So if you're in an urban area, maybe you spot a robbery, or a contact might have some mystery for you. Maybe a burglary is in progress, or a media attack is directed at you from some paper run by J. Jonah Jameson, probably. There could be a power outage in a limited area. There's no limit for your imagination. Have a nice little summary for judges. Give the players an even chance. Make your rulings and stick by them. Be prepared. Be patient with your players, but help them to move things along and do what you can to make playing the game easy at your table or virtual tabletop, as the case may be. Make sure that when you set the game up, the players know what kind of game it's going to be, what the focus will be, and what the power level will be. So if they're picking pre-gens or making a character, they know what they're kind of shooting for. I think that's really important. And speaking of which, then we get into the character listings. Once again, I'm not going to get into these in much detail, but you'll see that there are a hell of a lot of details. Now we've got some more powers and limitations, contacts and stuff for these characters that weren't in the other sets, which is very cool. So for example, Angel has some contacts. We got Aurora, who's got some limitations and some contacts as well. We've got Beast, Black Knight, Box, got body armor and flight, sensors, a few contacts and talents. We've got Captain America, who's got his motorcycle, a van, his weapon specialism with his shield, and he's got contacts with the Avengers, the US Army, and Nick Fury of S.H.I.E.L.D. So he's got a lot of access there. Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau, has law enforcement as a talent and a former member of the New Orleans Harbor Patrol and current member of the Avengers. We've got Cloak, Colossus, one of the better-known X-Men. Of course, Cyclops and his optic blasts. We've got Dagger, who hangs out with Cloak. Daredevil with his enhanced senses, radar sense, and his famous Billy Club weapon. He's blind, but that means he's also unaffected by illusions or hypnosis or light-based attacks, so it's got benefits too. And he's got martial arts A, B, and E, and is a specialist with his Billy Club. Got Doctor Strange, who's got tons of powers driven by his magic. He's got the Eye of Agamotto that can do all kinds of cool stuff. He's got a bunch of talents. He's got a load of dimensional contacts. And we've got Nick Fury, who's basically a regular dude, but he's got body armor, good talents, and contacts and weapons. Hawkeye, he's got enhanced senses, unique weapons, so all his different types of arrowheads. And the Skymobile, as well as various talents. And he's got marksman and weapon specialist, giving him +3 CS with his bow. And he's got martial arts A and E. We've got Hercules, who's immortal, invulnerable, resistant to fire, is enormously strong, great endurance. He's got master of wrestling, and he's the son of Zeus, so he's got loads of talents, loads of contacts through that. We've got the Hulk, he's got invulnerability, astral detection, body armor. He can leap 40 areas in a single bound with class 5000 ability. Adrenaline surge, so each round Hulk is in combat with the same opponent. He receives a shift, +1 CS to a maximum of shift Z to hit and damage. He can also locate his place of birth, desert-based New Mexico, with class 3000 ability. And then we got stats for Bruce Banner as well, when he's not Hulkified. Got the Human Torch with his Nova Flame and invulnerability, control fire and generate fire abilities. Iceman with ice generation, invulnerability, and ice-based movement. Invisible Woman with her force fields, invisibility, and flight. Iron Man with his body armor, force fields, flight, repulsors, bolts, energy absorption, all kinds of stuff. Chest beams, air supplies, electronic countermeasures. So he's got a ton of contacts through his wealth and being part of the Avengers. Got Magneto, who of course has magnetic control and force fields and flight. We have Marvel Girl, aka Jean Grey, who's got great telekinesis, force fields, and force bolts, a strong level of psyche at 50. Mr. Fantastic, who is plastic, can elongate, and has good body armor because he's so malleable. And he's very clever as well, so he's got world-class engineering abilities. Got Mockingbird, who's got unique weapons and body armor, and otherwise she's got knowledge in martial arts, law enforcement, and related things. We have Nightcrawler, who's well known for his Shift X teleportation ability, which is incredible. He can carry others. He can also do multiple teleportations as known stunts. His teleports are accompanied by a sulfurous smell and a bamfing noise. Got a prehensile tail, which can use as a third hand. Wall crawling, it can blend into the background. And he's got tumbling, martial arts C, and resist domination, first aid, electronics, repair tinkering, and sharp weapons. Very cool. We got North Star with flight, rapid attacks. Got Phoenix with telekinesis, force bolts, mental screens, telepathy, mutant detection. Professor X with monstrous psyche, great telepathy, mental bolts, mutant detection, astral projection, huge size screen. He's the world's premier telepath, basically. Got Puck, this little dude here. His body and psyche are the prison of a powerful magic being known as Razor, class 1000 mystic spell, and Razor cannot escape without Judd's permission. Razor has amazing body armor in his gaseous form. Yes, it's a weird dude. Need weird looking. We got Rogue, who can absorb powers. It's very cool. She can fly, of course. She's got body armor and combat sense and a size screen at class 1000 because she's got multiple conflicting personalities. And we got Shadow Cat, who can phase out of reality. She's got a number of known stunts as well, which is cool. We have Shaman, who can use spirit magic. He's got Eagle Crest. His hat transforms into the shape of an eagle, which acts as a familiar. And he's got a spirit staff to use to battle beings in the astral, spirit, or other planes, including out-of-phase and intangible beings. We got She-Hulk, who's got body armor, Shift Z leaping ability, and can leap 4 areas in a single bound. She has amazing resistance to heat and cold. She's got an alter ego just like Bruce Banner. She's a little bit less strong, but she's still pretty awesome. Silver Surfer, he's ridiculous. He's got the power Cosmic, which can do power blast of unearthly force of energy, raising any single ability score to unearthly for 1 to 10 rounds, healing up to unearthly damage, reconstruct existing matter in his own fashion, and perceive any energy source of more than earthly levels anywhere on the planet. Doesn't need to eat or breathe. He can fly at class 5000 in space and Shift Z in atmosphere. He's got body armor at monstrous. Yeah. So lots of stuff there going on there. Spidey, Peter Parker, of course, wall crawling, the spider sense, web shooters to ensnare people. Got Storm with weather control with a number of stunts. So fog and rain of amazing intensity winds, reducing weather effects from others. She can also fly. We have Submariner, who's resistant to cold, got great swimming. He can fly by unknown means. And of course, breathe in the water. Thing, who's got great body armor, alter ego, Ben Grimm. Got Thor of Asgard, who's got Mjolnir, and he has additional powers granted by the hammer. So the hammer can be thrown 10 areas away and returned to him. He can fly at Shift X speeds by throwing it and holding onto it, or you can spin it and hover in place. You can also use the spinning hammer as a shield of remarkable strength, and lots of other stuff as well. He can control weather control to summon storms and lightning. We have Tigra with enhanced senses, night vision, claws, and lightning speed. Sounds very tigerish. Vindicator with personal force fields, flight, energy bolts, digging. We've got Wasp, shrinking, flight, insect communication, and Wasp sting. Wolverine, of course, with regeneration, recovery, resistance, claws, tracking, and his adamantium skeleton. Wonder Man down here. Body armor and vulnerability, life support, and flight. A member of the West Coast Avengers. Then we got villains. Annihilus from the negative zone. Means he's made of antimatter, so that's pretty nasty. And he's got cosmic control rod. Enables him to control cosmic energy. And he can fly. We've got Baron Mordo, who's got magical ability. We've got Beetle, who's got body armor, wall crawling, flight, the electro bite, and a battle computer, which helps him fight against specific foes. Backlash with body armor, whips, gravity bolos, necro lash. Boomerang can carry 7 boomerangs, the Shatterang, Gasrang, Razorang, Bladerang, Screamerang, Gravity Rang, and Reflex Rang, and he can fly as well. Crimson Dynamo with body armor, flight, blasters, air supply, sensors, shoulder rams, so power suit situation. Dr. Doom, who's got a billion talents and powers, body armor, force fields, force beams, flight, air supply, transfer, magic, but it's just eldritch beams and bolts. He's got weapons, he's got Doom bots, he's got different levels of Doom bots. Each of them have their own body armor and force beams. He's got great talents in all sciences and occult lore. We have Dr. Octopus, who can use his tentacles in combat in a number of different ways, including 4 attacks on a single successful fighting feat. Dreadnoughts, who are robots with amazing strength titanium steel, and they have flamethrowers, sharpened spikes, electrical fields, gamma ray projectors, and freon gas dispensers. Electro can generate electricity, including firing bolts of lightning, giving shocks on touch. Got Hobgoblin, he's got his glove blasters, pumpkin bombs, goblin grenades, which can do smoke grenades, knock out gas, incendiary, or negate the spider sense. And he can throw out bat blades. Got Kingpin, he's got poor body armor. He's basically a regular guy, but he tends to carry a lot of weapons and a lot of minions. He's also got a top fighting form and a lot of martial arts abilities. He's a deadly opponent through his many contacts in the underworld. We've got Claw, who can transform into sonic energy. He cannot be affected by other physical and energy attacks. He can control sound creatures as well. Pretty cool. Craven, got a number of weapons, which he uses to hunt people, including poison gas, darts, knockout potions, electro blasters, but he never uses guns or bows. We've got Leader, got increased mental capacity, stun pistols, force rifles, entangling guns, mind control devices, and Omnivac, a sentient computer. He's got loads of minions as well. We've got Lizard, who's got tail, wall crawling, reptile control, and an alter ego. Loki, who's got dense flesh, which gives him excellent protection from physical and energy attacks. He's got great mental abilities, including thought casting, enhanced senses, and astral projection, but it's a mental image of himself. Magical abilities, including unlimited shapeshifting, imitation, matter rearrangement, eldritch blasts, shields, enhancements, magic talismans, all kinds of stuff. He's a god. Madcap, who can do emotion control, which is pretty rough, regeneration and recovery, and he's got a bubble gun that doesn't do anything. Mandarin, with force fields, he's got 10 rings that do loads of different crazy powers, from incredible force attacks to air control to disintegration to dark force. Mandroid, with weapon systems like neurostunners, trackers, laser torches, and punch blasters, plus sensors and remote controls and body armor. Master, who's got Plodex technology, so this gives him installations, typically huge, defended by grapples of incredible strength and laser and force cannons of amazing intensity. Mastermind, who can generate illusions, including duplicates of himself, becoming invisible, mask his appearance, creates illusions of attacks, so he can really mess with your head. And those are all known power stunts. Red Ghost, he's intangible and become mist-like. He's got 3 super apes with crazy abilities, which is pretty wild. Got Red Skull, Dust of Death, a skull infection, gross, mind control devices, and sleepers, which are pre-programmed war machines built by the Third Reich. He's also got marksmanship and strong martial arts and leadership abilities. The Scorpion with wall crawling and his tail, which can help him bounce around and inflict energy damage with its sting. He's got Titanium Man, who can fly, and he's got tough body armor and weapon systems, including helmet-mounted heat, gauntlet blasters, radar rings, and cloaking devices. Got Ultron 11 with body armor, class 1000 material, but shift X protection from bullseye, missile, or wrestling attacks. Loads of weapons, tractor beams, induction to absorb external energy, encephalo beam with mind control powers. We've got Vulture, who can fly, and that's it. We've got the entities of crazy power, so these are the Celestials. They have class 3000 body armor, class 3000 resistance, class 3000 energy powers for everything. Death, class 5000 everything, unlimited karma. They can use any of the powers listed within these books as it sees fit, a class 5000 ability. We've got Eternity, who is similar. Eternity is the sum total of all living forces and can eradicate the game universe and with it all other quasi-physical entities. Wow. Galactus, of course, he's got more reasonable stats, still classed 1000, 3000 for most of them. He's got enormous body armor, he's enormous himself, he can manipulate energy, got telepathy and technology, but of course he's got the hunger, he's got to eat planets. We've got Nova, Frankie Rays of Earth, so he has fire generation control, body armor, and flight at class 3000, and he can jump into hyperspace to span the stars. We have Hela from Asgard, got body armor, death goddess powers, including complete control of the dead of Niflheim and Hell, class 5000 illusions, death touches, aging rays. Got Mephisto, who is basically the devil and can use fire bolts, levitation, flying, teleportation, growth, mind manipulation, dimensional travel, whatever you need, basically. Odin, he's got mystic powers like unearthly enchantments, dimensional travel, 2 weapons of a class 1000 Uru metal, and he's got his ravens and Sleipnir, 8-legged steed, and Mimir, an all-seeing well of knowledge. Got the Shaper of Worlds, reality manipulation, illusion generation powers of class 5000, and we have the Watcher, Uatu of the Lunar Blue area. He has incredible mental abilities, class 1000 protection against mental attacks, energy manipulation, including teleportation at class 5000, galactic distances, just enormous amounts of power, basically. Then we got our supporting cast, so useful things you might encounter, like animals, behemoths, bears, cattle, dinosaurs, including giant armored ones, elephants, fish, horses, insects, worms, sharks, aliens, Atlanteans, Asgardians, Eternals, Inhumans, New Men, Thugs, Crooks, and Skrulls. And then you've got your Watcher staring you down at the end here. So, just quickly, to close up, we'll take a look at the other bits and bobs here. Now, I have, through the magic technology of scanning, I have not had to cut out these cards, but you'll see you get 3 sheets of character cards. You get a bunch of character cards, so all recognizable Marvel superheroes. You get Doctor Strange, Captain America, the Hulk, Ms. Marvel, we've got Wolvie, Storm, Namor, Cable, Colossus, Nightcrawler, we've got Cyclops, we've got Iceman, Angel, Hawkeye, Silver Surfer, Professor X, Rogue, Cloak and Dagger in there somewhere. Then we have our standees. So as per usual, you cut these out and they fold up into little triangular standees. Of course, the character cards contain the stats, which are also in the judge's book, but these are, as you can see, much reduced in size. So you kind of have to know the powers already for this to be a useful reference. And then we have just a ton of these standees here. So some of them are, you know, the heroes and villains that were statted in the judge's book. And then we have some generic thugs and stuff as well, and rando people just standing around. So you can represent cluttered areas of fighting. And then we've got our maps here. So here we have Mutant Alert. So showing you some possible mutant contacts from Cerebro. On the other side, we have some internal fighting areas. A bit of city action for fighting. It's actually, I think, different from what we had in the basic set, so that's kind of cool. No, wait, some of them might be the same. I'm not sure. But yeah, it's nice to have these to work with, at least to start. Of course, again, you go online, you can find an almost infinite variety of stuff to port into your games. Then we have, with some key locations, so we've got the X-Men mansion here, with maps of each level. So sub-basement 1, 2, second floor. We've got the attic, sub-basement level 1, and then we have the general layout of the place as well. So yeah, pretty cool. I think my version has a couple of maps from the X-Men campaign set thrown in randomly, but that's okay. But yeah, you can see the advanced game really has you covered on the rules front. You've got an absolute ton of heroes to play. You know, plenty of material there to help you run campaigns. Judge's book's really nice in that respect. So that concludes our look at the main box sets for FASERIP. I hope you enjoyed. Please feel free to ask any questions. I mean, I think this is the most complete version of the game. I think it deserves the kind of accolades it's gotten over the years. And I do recommend that you check it out if you're interested in playing this game with properly detailed and nicely laid out rules. Basic Revised is a good alternative if you don't want to go quite that far. Some people do prefer just the basic set, though, and I totally understand why. It's quick, it's pick up and play, it's fun, and what more do you need? But if you really love superheroes like I do, you want to get into the details, then this is what you need. It's well worth the money. Definitely get a lot of use out of it. So that concludes my review for today. I hope you enjoyed the review. Let me know if you have any questions or comments. I'll try to answer anything that comes up in the comments when I have time. On your way out, if you can hit like and subscribe and a little bell thing, that helps me out a lot. And if you can spare any cash for a donation, there's a Ko-fi link down below you can use to send me money to defray the costs of my RPG collection, which is massive. Thank you for joining me today. Thanks again, as always, for watching my videos and staying engaged with what I put out there. I hope it does help you make your buying decisions a little bit easier. In the meantime, stay healthy, take care, and see you next time. Okay, bye-bye.